Hello and welcome to the Weekly Stuff Podcast with Jonathan Lack.
And Sean Chapman.
We are here to talk about stuff. This week on the show, we are getting super with Dragon Ball Super, Superhero, the new Dragon Ball movie playing in theaters here in America. Brand new in both English and Japanese for the first time. We saw it. We talked all about it. You're going to hear our big review of that episode of that movie later on in today's episode. Spoiler-free thoughts really quick. It's fantastic.
It's awesome. If you like Dragon Ball, you should definitely see it.
You might even say it's super.
Sure.
Okay.
You might even say it's super.
It's double super. Double the super, double the fun. That will be our main topic today, talking about Dragon Ball Super Superhero. Sean, do you have anything else going on that we should talk about before we get to Dragon Ball?
I've been replaying God of War 2018 because the sequel's coming out soon. That game kicks ass still. If you were wondering 4 years later, is God of War still good? The answer is hell yeah, it is.
I have been meaning to do that. It is definitely on my... I will just say, for the last month and a half, I've been playing almost no video games, or it's been a little bit of Genshin every day. I don't know if I'm even going to be able to finish, though. I'm still not done with the Genshin summer event, and I don't know if I'm going to make it.
It's very long.
I think it's a little too long. I think it's overridden. Anyway, but it's fun, but it's a little too much. I am waiting, though. I definitely want to play God of War 2018. On a whim the other night, though, Sean, I loaded something that I had downloaded via Game Pass on my Xbox, and I haven't been able to stop playing it. It's called Power Wash Simulator. Have you heard of this game?
Yes, yeah, I'm familiar, yeah.
It's become, I think, a bit of a kind of hit, especially in streaming and stuff. But it is a game, and it's on Game Pass, it's on Steam, you can get it anywhere. It's exactly what it says on the tin. It is, you are a power washer, you have different power wash equipment, and you start and it's relatively sane, you clean a car, then it's all sorts of other things. This morning I did a big playground with a giant house in the shape of a shoe, and I had to build scaffolding around it to get up and clean everything, and you basically have different nozzles and powers of water, and you have to clean off all the dirt, and it is the most zen game ever, because there's nothing else to it. You clean the stuff, and you get it clean, and it is a game about fiddly little details. It is very pick up and play approachable, but it kind of has a puzzle game depth to it at a certain point. And it is also just incredibly relaxing, but I also get a little obsessive with it because it's not like you can just choose to stop and say, I did well enough. You do have to 100% every level, and that you got to get all that dirt. And it's kind of that's how I would play it anyway, but it makes you play it. So it is both zen and also very intense, which is what zen is in terms of meditation. So it's really good, but it is taking over my life a little bit.
It is not in the least surprising to me that you got way into Power Wash Simulator. I don't think I would have thought that you would have encountered that game, but having encountered Power Wash Simulator does not surprise me that it is now consuming your life.
I am the person who has played Papers, Please to 100% achievement on multiple systems. Unboxing was one of my games of the year last year, the one that is about literally unboxing all a person's possessions and putting them in different arrangements. It turns out I like this kind of game, and I don't know if I want people to know that, but I am saying it on a podcast, so there you go.
There you go. Hey, God of War and Power Wash Simulator aren't that different. You are having to clean up, stuff with your power washing tools. I have to clean up, the realms with my tools. Yours is just a high-powered O's, and mine is a magic ice axe. But we're just, we're just making the world a better place. That's all.
Indeed. I am looking forward to God of War, though, with all the PS5 enhancements. I bet it looks gorgeous.
Yes, it runs very nice, because that is one of the things about God of War on the PS4 Pro, is that neither of the modes were perfect in terms of frame rate. You got either an unstable 30 frames per second, or you got a totally uncapped frame rate that did not ever really hit 60, and this is a buttery smooth 60 frames per second. I'm playing it on the Give Me God of War, I think is what it's called. It's a difficulty they added in an update sometime after the game originally launched, which is very harsh early on. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it for most people to go up to that hardest difficulty, especially if you've never played the game before. You absolutely shouldn't. It's way too hard if you don't know what you're doing. But once you get into it a little bit and you level up, it is a very fun difficulty that forces you to use all the stuff in the game. And I was very impressed at how quickly I got my my God of War legs back under me in terms of remembering how that combat system worked and getting like all the abilities and using all the combos and stuff like that. That game is a fucking masterpiece. It is making me very excited for the sequel. Replaying that first one, or that first one / that fourth one or fifth one, depending on how you define it.
Indeed. I feel almost a little bad for God of War Ragnarok coming out the same year as Elden Ring, because I think it would be a pretty clear shoo-in for maybe Game of the Year if it weren't for Elden Ring. Obviously, it could be. I'm sure it will be great. We haven't played it yet, but yeah, it's definitely one I am looking forward to. And, I've been more in like movie and research mode and anime mode, obviously, so I haven't been playing a ton of games. But now I'm power washing. That's my life. I'm a power washer in a video game.
What if you're power washer in real life? What if you just said like, fuck it, let's quit this university shit. Let's just like sell all of my stuff and just buy a high-powered hose and just wander from town to town, a lone drifter with one hose, just trying to solve the world's problem by cleaning up all the dirt. And you clean up the dirt, but in doing so, you dirty yourself, and you can't be in the town that is now clean because you're too dirty to live in that town anymore, and you must wander again. What if that was the life you chose for yourself?
I think you just pitched a new pilot for CBS this fall.
Yeah, it started out as a joke, and then like halfway through, I'm like, this sounds really good. It's just Power Washer Zatoichi. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's get Walton Goggins as the main character. He wanders it'll be on FX. He goes from town to town. He's got his power washer. This is I want to see this show now.
I'm totally in for it. Maybe we should just like quit making podcasts and just pitch this for a major TV studio. Be like, we could totally do it. It's going to be great. The kids will be way into it. Look at the Steam numbers for Power Wash Simulator. It's the most popular shit in the world.
I think in my head I meant to say Timothy Oliphant because that's who was in my head, but it
Walton
came out as
Goggins
Walton Goggins
is way better.
Yes,
Walton Goggins is a way better choice for this.
Yes, it's because I think he would start out a little seedy, but you would turn out he has a heart and a power washer of gold.
Exactly. But his hands aren't clean. Even though he uses them to clean, his hands themselves are not.
Maybe that's the name of the show. Clean Hands, coming to FX 2023. All right, this is getting punchy. Should we go ahead and cut to the Dragon Ball discussion, Sean?
Yeah, Jonathan. Let's talk about some Dragon Ball.
We're not just talking about Dragon Ball. We're talking about Dragon Ball Super. We're not just talking about Dragon Ball Super. We're talking about Dragon Ball Super Superhero, because there's a new movie. It's out in theaters in North America. We both saw it this weekend. We even got to see it in Japanese. I thought that would never fucking happen. Yes. I love this movie so much, Sean. I'm so excited to talk about it.
Yes, it is a great Dragon Ball movie, and it is very satisfying to be able to go to movie theater and see it with the Japanese language option. I mean, this movie just released wide. I believe it is the widest release of any anime movie.
Almost 4,000 theaters. It's over double what Broly released in 2019.
Yeah, and it is the highest grossing movie in the U.S. box office for the weekend, although it has like almost no competition, but still, it is like clear evidence. There's stuff we've talked about in other podcasts before. People should just release anime wide, man. Everyone fucking wants to see it. This movie kicks ass. Everyone went to go see it because it kicks ass and it's Dragon Ball, and we're here to talk about it.
I believe it's the second anime of the year to open #1 at the American box office. Jujutsu Kaisen Zero did it too. And those are both Crunchyroll Funimation releases. I mean, it's a really cool moment. We talked about that with Broly when that came out, because that was an unprecedented success, and then we've had several of them since then. But now we're back with Dragon Ball Super Superhero, our first piece of new Dragon Ball animated content in quite a while. The Super manga has continued in the off years by Toyotaro, but in terms of actual like mainline animated stuff, there's been nothing since the Broly movie. And this is our first new thing, and it's new in every way, because basically no one who worked on past Dragon Ball things worked on this one, other than Toriyama, who wrote and designed it, the characters and the story, and then the main Toei producer. But everyone else was new animation style in 3D CGI, all sorts of new stuff. We will be spoiling the movie in a bit here. Do we want to give quick spoiler-free reactions? Yeah.
For me, I thought it was fantastic. I probably wouldn't put it above Broly. I think I would probably say this is my second favorite Dragon Ball movie now. I think it's we have our like top three, right? The three great Dragon Ball movies, what are now the three great Dragon Ball movies, which is Broly, this and Battle of Gods, which I would personally put in that order. But this is fantastic. If you have any love in your heart for Gohan and Piccolo, like this is that movie, right? It's the movie you saw in the trailers where it's like Piccolo is front and center and he's effectively the protagonist. And it's really nice to just get that side of Dragon Ball, which it was really big in Z, in particular in the like Frieza, like, the first 2/3 of Z, I guess, everything up until Boo, where that was like a huge part of the focus of the franchise. And then they were more kind of sidelined for a lot of Super. And so it's really nice to get that side of the world, its own big movie. And I think the 3D animation looks awesome. There's a lot of great action in it. I think there's a lot of great personality in it. It is nice to see the timeline be moved up. It's several years after Super Broly. So Pan is older and she's like a character. Goten and Trunks are older and they have new redesigns. Like, it just feels like a proper continuation of Dragon Ball Super, while also being able to focus on things that the Super franchise didn't really get super deep into. And it's just a great movie on top of all of that. So if you're a Dragon Ball fan, I think this is just an absolute must watch.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much all of that. I would need to like see it again and think on it to say which I think is better, this or Broly or Battle of Gods. Because I think all of them are very different and do specific different things well. Like, Broly aesthetically is the peak of Dragon Ball. It's like near the peak of anime in some ways. So like, that's just, such a phenomenal aesthetic experience. And I love the visuals in Superhero, but it's not as like good or to my taste as that. But in so many other ways, like, this feels like if I got the Dragon Balls together and I summoned Shenlong and I said, Shenlong, would you please make me, Jonathan Lack, the Dragon Ball movie I've always wanted? This is the movie that Shenlong would have made for me, because it is about Gohan and Piccolo, who are my favorite Dragon Ball Z characters. Like, I know Piccolo is in like Dragon Ball as well, but like the Piccolo whose arc really starts in Z with Gohan. Yeah. Those are and that's why that's my favorite, overall stretch of the series, is those first 2/3 of Z of basically Gohan's maturation, Piccolo on the side, a lot of those characters. And then all the stuff I love from the Boo arc, like Videl and Pan and some of the extended universe around that, Goten and Trunks. And so it really takes all of that as its center. It is finally a Dragon Ball movie, and finally a piece of modern Dragon Ball where Goku and Vegeta are completely sidelined. They're just not, they're in one scene, and that's it. And I really loved that, because I rewatched all the recent movies, Battle of Gods, Resurrection F, and Broly recently, and it just struck me, and then thinking about Super, that every piece of modern Dragon Ball has been pretty Goku-Vegeta-centric, other than the future Trunks arc where you have Trunks in there. But even then, it's still Goku, Vegeta, and Trunks. And so I think it's great we finally got a piece that kind of decentered those characters, let someone else be the star. It does a great job with all of that. I think the sense of humor is phenomenal, but also just the character work, I think, is the best Toriyama has written in the modern era. There's so many good character details about everyone's lives and, where they've come and where they're going. I do think this is the best script of the modern DBZ movies. Like, it's a really well-structured movie with, like, great dialogue and character work and all of that. So, it's another piece of modern Dragon Ball that just feels very special and unique and different, and I really like that about it. And I'm excited to talk about it, because it is such a pure... I had the biggest grin on my face watching this movie, and I'm so happy it exists.
Yeah, it's just it's just very fun to be able to have these kinds of Dragon Ball movies, like compared to the old style where they're like the 50-minute, hey, this is this weird kind of non-canon, we're just gonna repackage the most recent arc of the anime to you and shave off the serial number and give everybody different names. And yeah, it's like, Resurrection F, I think, is a more inconsistent thing, even if it's got good stuff in it. It is not like an amazing movie. But Battle of Gods, Broly, and this all feel like they're such essential pieces of Dragon Ball. And being really good movies on top of it, but also just being things that feel like they push the franchise in interesting new directions. And coming out of this movie, I was just like, I really need them to start making another TV show. Like, I really want them to continue on with like some of the new characters, and where, pick up more of the plot threads and get more Gohan and Piccolo stuff, see what Goku and Vegeta and Broly and that gang is up to. Like, just like, it's crazy to me that Dragon Ball still feels this vibrant, and that's kind of how I felt coming out of this movie. It was like, man, like Dragon Ball just feels so present and current and like alive still. And that's like Battle of Gods kind of brought it back. And that was a while ago at this point. And then this
9
is
years.
yeah, and this is just like that another shot in the arm where it's like, man, like Dragon Ball can keep going, and it's crazy and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. And, I think that's actually a good transition into a little bit of the backstory of how this movie came about, because it is worth saying, Broly came right on the heels of the Super anime. They stopped the anime, and then the movie came out about 8 months later in Japan. And it was, the same director who did the second half of Super, Tatsuya Nagamine, directed that movie. That movie had a new animation supervisor in Naohiro Shintani, who did a phenomenal job. And that was the first new animation supervisor the show had had in decades, who really gave it a facelift. And it was a really great effort. And I think we all expected Broly, because Broly was a hit everywhere it came out. And it was a huge hit in Japan. I think everyone expected there would be more. And instead, the Broly team wound up going off and working on a lot of other Toei properties. So Tatsuya Nagamine has been directing the Wano arc of One Piece for the last couple of years. And a lot of the people who worked on Broly, key animators and such, have been working on that as well. And if you're an anime fan, you've probably heard the hype. The Wano arc of One Piece has, in an anime form, has been spectacular. It's been probably the best, in terms of a production version of like a weekly anime where it comes out every week, rain, snow, or shine. That I think I've ever seen. It's very consistent in that way. Some of the animators went off and worked on the Dragon Quest Adventure of Dai anime that Toei is making based on the classic manga. So they've kind of been scattered to the winds, and they're just, the people didn't quite exist to make Dragon Ball. And so this is Toei's 3D CGI team that sort of came together to do this movie. And it's not just 3D CGI because, traditional animators weren't available. I think that team had a real vision for how to do this in 3D. And if you look at some of the different behind-the-scenes details that have leaked, it seems like there was a lot of enthusiasm for doing it this way. And so we have a new director and animation supervisor and everyone on this. And I think that's an interesting kind of state of affairs, but it leads to something that I think is very unique, and I think that's part of the fun of the movie.
Yeah, and that so the director of the movie is Tetsuro Kodama, who he was the CGI director on Super Broly. So that's kind of like, which is that, Super Broly doesn't have a huge amount of CGI in it, but it has a couple of those CG sequences when it goes fucking crazy. And then he's worked on other stuff, like he's worked on Pretty Cure, which is also a Toei thing, right? So like he's been doing CG stuff there for a while, but this is like his first like big project. That is full CG. And then one other thing, when I was looking through the cast and kind of looking at who worked on this, that really stood out to me is the animation director is Chikashi Kubota, who has been a chief animation director on a bunch of really great projects. Probably like the crown jewel in his career in terms of like quality stuff is that he was the chief animation director for season 1 of One Punch Man. Anyone who has seen season 1 of One Punch Man knows what the fuck that means, that you got that guy. It's like, Jesus Christ, that is some of the best looking any like season of TV anime has ever looked. Like it's up there with like the best stuff in like Kimetsu no Yaiba. So it's like there are some like really, really strong people working on it. But as you say, it's not like the people who were working on Super all the way through. Like some people have done a little bit of Dragon Ball stuff, but it is a largely new team for this franchise, and it's a very new direction by going full 3D CG. And I think there's a lot of consternation about the CG stuff when the first announcement came out with like the first kind of teaser trailer, because I don't think anyone expected it to go 3D. But watching the movie, I think it was a really strong choice. I don't necessarily want every single Dragon Ball thing for the future to be like this. Like, I still want to have 2D animation stuff. But if you're going to do 3D CG, this is awesome. And they take full advantage of it. And it's like a fully realized aesthetic for the movie that feels very authentically Dragon Ball, but also is able to do stuff that you would not have been able to do with more traditional animation methods.
Do you want to just start there and talk about the animation? Because it's probably the first thing a lot of people are going to notice. Whether you are a casual Dragon Ball fan or a diehard, you're going to notice walking in, this looks different, right? Mm-hmm. And this is in a continuum. It's a fairly limited data set, but there have been a number of anime productions that are full CG. It is rare still, but there's a couple of them. I think the most notable recent one was Lupin the Third, the First, which was the last Lupin movie made when Monkey Punch was still alive, the mangaka, and he'd always wanted to try a 3D CG movie with Lupin, and that's a great movie that did a really tremendous job, I think, taking the aesthetics of Lupin and putting them into the third dimension. And I would put this very much up there on the plinth with that movie in terms of successfully adapting an anime aesthetic into 3D and then using 3D for its full potential. Because that's what impressed me about Superhero, is that this did not feel like a replacement for what the cell animation was doing. This felt like a complete rethinking. Like, I feel like it's impossible to be unsatisfied with the animation here because every scene, every shot is making such use of the unique possibilities of 3D CGI, which are just very different than cell animation. Even in, Broly has its big moments where you're going to burst into 3D, but you're going to try to keep kind of an anime aesthetic and move in sort of 3 dimensions, but it's not the sort of standard language of the piece. This is something where everything is just going to move a little differently, and it creates possibilities for the story and the aesthetics in all sorts of ways. And I think they have a lot of fun with that. You can tell it's a team of people who have been cutting their teeth on a lot of other projects, and you named, some of them. Clearly, the pedigree here is actually quite strong for this fairly unique skill set within anime still at this point. And I think all of that, adds together to make something that feels really, really good. Like you, I would not want this to be the forever aesthetic for Dragon Ball, although my brother Thomas said they 100% need to make a video game that looks like this, and he's absolutely right, because that would be very cool. It actually kind of reminded me, there was a PS2 game based on an arcade game called Super DBZ back in the day. This looks a lot like that, because it is CG, but it's, honestly, this one is taking, I feel like, more from the manga than past anime adaptations. You'll notice that in some of the color work is very inspired by Toriyama's color pages from the manga, and then from the full color manga that came out in 2013 that Toriyama didn't color himself but was done in his style. The most notable one is Piccolo has been recolored to match his manga appearance, which he never has been in the anime before. You'll notice that on his arms have the yellow bulbous areas now instead of pink. But I think throughout it has a color setting that kind of calls back to the manga. It uses manga sound effects in certain scenes early on. And all of that just adds to make a very fun, unique aesthetic that feels very, very Dragon Ball to me. It screams Toriyama. It's just coming at it from a different direction.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, like 3D CG anime, where I feel like we have it has been like a long rocky road to get to this point where you can do this and have it be so successful at both feeling like it legitimately sort of captures the core underlying aesthetic of the art that it is adapting, right? Like this feels Toriyama as fuck, right? Like you look at it and it has that quality to it. As you say, the coloring feels like they are intentionally going back to the more kind of classic manga coloring, so you've got your yellow Piccolo muscles and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, there's a long road of weird CG anime productions. We've talked about some of them that have in different styles in Gundam, like MS Igloo and its whole weird thing of being PS2 video game graphics, and that kind of approach of having it be it's got manga inspired character design elements, but the overall aesthetic is trying to be more lifelike or real life. And then we've seen lots of examples, many of them very poor, in TV anime of shows trying to do this, of trying to do, here's an adaptation of a manga or something, and we're doing 3D CG characters. Probably one of the most infamous versions of that is the modern TV Berserk adaptation, which, if you've seen any of the GIFs online from that production, it just is disastrous. But there are some key examples in the past 5 years or so. Stuff like Land of Lustrous in the TV area is what I think of immediately as being an incredibly successful production at using 3D CG to capture an anime-esque aesthetic, while at the same time doing things with it that you cannot do in a traditional 2D, or would be insanely time-consuming and expensive to do it in traditional 2D animation. And I think you also see it, I would put in here, in the video game side. Video games have now gotten to the point where they can do this. And Arc System Works and Dragon Ball FighterZ is the biggest example of that. And some of the way this movie looks feels a little bit like an Arc System Works thing to me, where it is able to, in still frames, almost fool you in a way to feel like it's like a 2D image because of how good they are at like blending and compositing all the different elements together. And like the outlines and everything just sort of fit and snap really well. And so when the camera is still and like there aren't a lot of things moving and using the 3D space, it has a very 2D look to it at times. But then when things move or the camera needs to move, it's able to sort of capture that 3D element and take full advantage of it. And it's just a really exciting thing to feel like we are at this point where you can have lots of productions like this in TV or in movies or in games that are able to actually properly capture an anime aesthetic while still moving it into a 3D space with 3D cameras and all that stuff.
It's funny. I mean, this is literally a chapter of my dissertation is going to be on this, because my dissertation is about the sort of evolution of anime in the digital era. And, you know, some of that is going to be about sort of the Kimetsu no Yaiba thing or the Dragon Ball Super Broly thing of mixing a 3D and a 2D aesthetic in a very kind of fluid synthesis. But then I do want to explore the full 3Dification of moments where we do go full 3D. I've been waiting for... I wrote in my prospectus, I'm going to be writing about Dragon Ball Super Superhero. The movie's not out yet, but I can tell it's going to go in there. This will 100% be in there because it's really interesting what it does. That Lupin movie I mentioned, Land of the Lustrous, will surely be... I still need to watch that, but I'm sure that will be in there once I do. It's on the list. And it is a really fascinating question because I think for a lot of anime fans, certainly in the West, and I'm guessing in Japan, there's must be some trepidation around it because it's like... We've seen what 3D CG has done in Hollywood is the big one, but other industries have mimicked it. And it is so homogenized and homogenizing. And, you know, every American CG movie looks more or less the same. They draw humans the same. They have these sort of semi-exaggerated aesthetics, but it's not very interesting. It's just a lot of sameness. It's why something like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse felt like water in the fucking desert for a lot of us, right? It's like, oh my god, an American studio used 3D CG to do something cool instead of another Pixar movie that sucked, you know, like all of that. Yeah. And I think there's, you know, natural worry of that aesthetic getting flattened out. Like MS Igloo is one that bears that out, you know, because it takes the Gundam aesthetic and just makes it look like a PS2 game, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of the most prominent use of CG anime for the last 20 years has been in, you know, video game stuff, like Final Fantasy movies that don't really, they're taking the aesthetics from video games, not from anime. But now, as you say, we're going the other way, and we have a lot of video games taking their aesthetics from anime and doing a great job at that. Genshin Impact is one that is an obvious choice for that examination as well. And I think you look at some of these examples you were naming, and this, I think Dragon Ball Super Superhero is a particularly good test case for this, just because there is so much Dragon Ball, and Toriyama's style is so distinctive. And it does a phenomenal job at it. It really does feel like, okay, this is anime. It's anime completely in the computer, but it's anime still. And that challenges a lot of preconceived notions, and that's cool. And I think that makes this a really interesting kind of landmark movie in that sense.
Yeah, it's just for a very, very long time, whenever, like, you would see, oh, this movie or this show, it's either full 3D CG or it uses a lot of 3D CG characters, and it would be like, oh, shit, this is going to be hard to get through, or it would be something you have to kind of look past in order to get into the show, and there have been a few things, like the Netflix Godzilla movies are an example where sometimes that works well for those movies, sometimes it did not work particularly well for those movies. And it's something you had to kind of look past to enjoy the rest of the film. The Ajin series, which is an anime adaptation of a manga series that was full 3D CG, also had that problem in a lot of places where anytime it wasn't like a big, cool action scene they spent a lot of time on, it was just characters talking, it was like painful because of how awkward the 3D CG stuff is. And it's just really satisfying to be at this point where you're getting TV shows and you're getting stuff like this. Beastars would be another example of a recent TV anime that does 3D CG well. Like, you're getting it where it's like, it's not a thing you're like, oh no, I have to look past this element in order to enjoy it. It's like, I get to enjoy it because it has this in it. Because it's 3D CG, this movie gets to do things that other Dragon Ball movies don't get to do. And that to me was like a real joy, because even though I thought the trailers looked really good, there was still a part of me in the back of my head going into the movie that was a little bit worried that, like, it wouldn't kind of, like, especially with Super Broly being its predecessor, that it wouldn't be able to kind of live up to a lot of that stuff. And I wouldn't say that it looks as good as Super Broly to me, but I wouldn't say that about almost any animated production. But I think it does look phenomenal in its own way, and it uses it amazingly.
Yeah, and some parts of it are better than others. I think the scene that stood out to me as like weaker on the CG level is the one scene with Goku and Vegeta up on Beerus's planet. The fight you get there between Goku and Vegeta is really fun, but everything else looks a little off. I think Whis was not translated into 3D well at all. Like, Whis looks really off in this movie. I think the general environment, I don't know if they really rethought it in CG that particularly well. I think Goku and Vegeta's character models were a tiny bit off in a way that it felt like, and properly so, Gohan and Piccolo had more kind of love put into figuring out how to do them in 3D. But it is one scene, and the scene itself is still good. That's just one where I noticed, okay, this feels a little off. But then there's a lot of other ones where, like, oh, they're doing something here that you couldn't have done in a different kind of production, and I love that. Certainly a lot of the stuff in the second half at the big Red Ribbon Army base, just the entire conception of space that they've done for that set is something you wouldn't do if you were drawing a 2D anime, because it's not the kind of space you would be working with. So there's a lot of fun stuff like that.
Yeah, and all the stuff they do with like the scale of certain things in the full climax with Cell Max and Piccolo, and like it uses like the size of things in a way that I think 2D animation you could do, but it's a lot harder to get across. In 3D I think is better at like working at things at that really big scale, because it's just so much more flexible about what you can do with the camera and sell that scale, and move the camera around to be able to help sell that scale and stuff like that. It was something that stood out to me, that I feel like that stuff, when things get big, felt more impressive to me than, say, the like last Dragon Ball Z movie that also has a giant monster in it, and it's good, but I think it is not as interesting to me. And I think this is like the most interesting Dragon Ball characters fighting giant monster has ever looked. Which is a thing that you get sometimes with like the giant apes and stuff. And I think 2D animation sometimes has a hard time with really kind of getting that feeling across. Whereas this felt like it was triggering my like kaiju movie brain a little bit better, and using some of the techniques those movies have to sell the scale of the figures you're looking at.
When you're fighting a big figure, like a big monster, you're in three-dimensional space because you're not fighting them one-on-one. You have to go around them and do all this stuff. And so you're able to do that. And the final fight in this movie is really fun because, like, we can debate how interesting the monster they're fighting is, but I think the fact that they're fighting a monster gives them a chance to do a bunch of interesting team-up, mechanics and stuff like that. Versus, what anime excels at is anything one-on-one where your characters are relatively similarly sized. That's, more like a martial arts thing where it's intentionally going to be more of sort of a side view thing of the body, which is what the sort of animatic kind of style of anime really excels at, and even takes a little bit from, movies with a lot of martial arts or dance are in live action shot a little more that way to give you those, bodies together. And I think this movie also, it is, as the title says, it's a superhero movie. It's a superhero movie. And it is also playing with the language of superhero movies. And I think it's having a lot of fun with that. Both the Japanese tradition of, like, tokusatsu stuff, there's a little bit in there. But also, it's clearly, like, the modern superhero cycle of, like, Marvel and DC and all of that, I think has trickled in. And so, a lot of the entire idea of having a big, finale where everyone comes together to fight one big threat is much more of a superhero movie kind of thing to do. And so, using a conception of visual space that allows you to do that also just makes sense.
Yeah, because it is fun to have Dragon Ball show up to that party and be like, okay, well, 90% of superhero movies end with this like awful finale where it's just giant space lasers or whatever. Think like the end of WandaVision is one of those egregious examples of this, where it's like weird CG bullshit. Like the end of Batman v Superman is another good example where you're just like, I don't even know what's happening. It's just sort of, there's some sort of like energy blasts are happening or something. And it's just absolute garbage. And then Dragon Ball shows up as like, hey, this is my gig. I know how to do this shit. Like, let me here. I'll frame it in the superhero way with the giant monster and all the team-ups and all that kind of stuff. But I'll show you how you do the giant crazy beams and all of that and have it actually be awesome. Because most like Marvel or DC superhero movies that go for those big climaxes, it's just complete bullshit, and it's easily the worst parts of those movies. Whereas here, it's Dragon Ball doing it. Dragon Ball knows how to do that shit.
It is amazing. I've been joking on Twitter that this is my new favorite superhero movie because it's called Superhero. It's a superhero movie. And, if I were actually going to think about that, then I'd have to contend with, is this better than Spider-Man 2 or something? It is definitely better than the vast fucking majority of superhero movies. And it puts basically everything Marvel has ever made to utter and abject shame on the visuals and action department. And not even there, I also think on a story level, on a character dimension, pacing, it's just a really superior example of the genre. And it is kind of like superhero movies come into play in Dragon Ball's wheelhouse, and it knows what it's doing with this, right? And Toriyama, I think Toriyama has gotten, he did not write Battle of Gods, but he did an extensive rewrite and suggestions process on it. Resurrection F was his first movie script, and I think you feel that. That movie is very rough in plotting and pacing. But he's gotten better at it each time, and I think this one shows a lot of confidence with the form of a 100-minute movie. What do you do with it? And yeah, this is just, because then you also remember, oh right, most modern superhero movies are inexplicably over 2 hours long. And this is a tight 100 minutes, and it does everything you could want it to do in those 100 minutes. Maybe even a little more,
Yes, no, absolutely. It is a very confident feeling production all around.
Yeah. So do you want to go ahead and talk about the story and content with spoilers and everything from here on out?
Yes.
All right. So it's kind of funny. The thing that maybe gave me a little bit of pause going into this, because I was so excited about the Piccolo and Gohan and all of that, but I also knew this was another sort of Red Ribbon Army story. And I did wonder, is this going to be one trip too many to that well? Because, I would say Resurrection F is a good idea, or a good example of going back to a particular well and not really finding anything in there, because Resurrection F, its only idea is Frieza comes back, and it never kind of takes the next step. Super, I think, and Broly take that next step and do interesting things with Frieza, but I don't think the Resurrection F movie does. This is, because we've had the Red Ribbon Army in Dragon Ball, then in Z there's the entire Android saga, which is an extension of the Red Ribbon Army stuff, and this is a really fun kind of connecting of both sides of that, of the kind of Dr. Gero, big Android side of it, and then the original Red Ribbon Army world domination plot thing. But I think it doesn't feel just like a loose retread, and I really liked the first 10 minutes of the movie, where we meet Magenta, and we see that there's Red Pharmaceuticals is like the upstanding business side of the Red Ribbon Army, which I think is a very funny plot point. And you have Dr. Hedo, who is just the most perfect Akira Toriyama character. I love him to death. He's a great character. And you meet Dr. Hedo, and he is recruited by Magenta because Magenta spins him this story where he tells basically truthfully the story of Dragon Ball and Z, but frames it in such a way where it looks like Bulma is scheming with aliens to take over the world and appeals to Dr. Hedo's sense of superheroics from comic books. That is such a great setup for this movie. I loved this from the first scene.
Yeah, there's a lot of, that first 15 minutes or so in particular has a lot of really good, kind of deeper Dragon Ball stuff going on. If you're deeper into the Dragon Ball shit, there's lots of good little references and connective points. Because one thing that has always seemed really weird to me, and it's partially because, the order, as almost all American people did with Dragon Ball, the order you consumed it in was Dragon Ball Z and then Dragon Ball, because that's the order it came out over here. So the first time I encountered Red Ribbon Army stuff in the Dragon Ball franchise was through the Android saga. And so I always, when eventually Dragon Ball started airing and I started watching the original Dragon Ball stuff and you get to the Red Ribbon arc, it's where's Dr. Gero? Where are I guess there's, Android number 8, which is a Frankenstein joke, but there's no, you don't have any of that stuff in it because it's Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball doesn't actually give a shit about, real continuity in that way. It was more just a one-off sort of we can give a mild justification for why the androids exist once you do the Z arc, and it makes more sense if you see it in that order rather than expecting there to be this richer backstory in the original series that is alluded to by the appearance of the androids in Dragon Ball Z. But it has always been weird to me that there's no explanation for it. There's no explanation for, where was Dr. Gero? What the fuck was he doing? What is any of that? What was he doing when Goku was fucking shit up and killing all the Red Ribbon Army people? Because Goku definitely killed basically all of them. It was just, a weird gap in that continuity. And I like that this sort of takes the two versions of the Red Ribbon stuff. It takes the original Dragon Ball stuff with Magenta here, and then it takes all of the Android Saga stuff with Dr. Hedo, and it combines it together and creates a logic by which all those things intersected and coexisted in a way that Dragon Ball has never actually properly presented. And I thought that was like a satisfying little piece of sort of lore or whatever. That's like, okay, I can kind of fit these two misjointed puzzle pieces in the Dragon Ball universe that feel like they were supposed to fit, never actually fitted, and there's just like two lines of dialogue that you kind of go, oh, okay, now it works, and now it feels like they kind of can coexist naturally in the timeline of the series.
Yeah, I think that was fun. I think the sort of flashback recreations of various moments from the Dragon Ball sagas that we get throughout this movie, but especially at the beginning, which they do more in a sort of classical 2D style, are very fun, look good, are kind of a glimpse into like, what if Dragon Ball was animated now? What would it look like? I love that the movie just starts with, on a black screen, a Masuko Nozawa doing a young Goku yell, like rushing the Red Ribbon Army. Yeah, all of that is good. And I think the characters, like, this movie really showcases Toriyama's ability to do just character writing in a way that I think he's always been very good at. Because we have 4 major new characters here. We have Hedo, Magenta, and then Gamma 1 and 2. And all of them feel...
Don't forget about Carmine.
Carmine. We have 5. Carmine is phenomenal.
Yes, the greatest new Dragon Ball character, Carmine.
Carmine, who he steals the show right from the beginning, because Carmine's joke is that he prepares the video packages for Magenta, and he always does a Carmine production at the beginning. And then we also see later on, but this movie is so great at filling the background with little details. Yes. It makes me excited to see it again. But you see later on, like, the end credits for one of Carmine's videos, and he's credited himself on every single one. So Carmine is like your stoic heavy, except that he is like an aspiring filmmaker, which is a phenomenal joke.
Yes.
Yeah. So, that's great character writing. I think Magenta's whole deal, he is, I think, a very fun update of the Commander Red sort of stereotype. I like his whole thing, that his thing is sort of cigars. And then on the other side, you have Hedo with his Oreos and milk and soda. And Hedo, of course, is a character with so many great characteristics. And then Gamma 1 and 2, despite being roughly identical as a visual design, are really distinguished through the performance and the writing and all of that. This is something that I think... the movies in particular, but also Super, the TV series at various points, have done really well of introducing characters who don't just feel like they fit in the Dragon Ball universe, but feel essential now. Like, yes. Beerus and Whis are the most obvious examples of that, because we're never going to have Dragon Ball again without them. They're so, like, they just feel like they were always there. But, the Broly movie had the new version of Broly himself. It had Shilai and Limo, who show up again here and are great. And then this one, all these characters, like, I would be really bummed if we don't see Hedo and Gamma 2 again or something, It's like all of that kind of stuff is so fun.
Yeah, it is definitely, I think, the key distinguishing thing to me between Super and GT. Like, if like someone were to ask me, like, what is like the number one reason why Super is successful in a way that GT never really was? And I think it's fundamentally that, like, Super is able to pretty regularly supply new characters that feel like real to the world of Dragon Ball in a way that, like, all the GT original characters and most of the GT original concepts felt totally alien. Like, the only character in GT to me that, like, felt like, oh, this is an essential Dragon Ball character is Pan. And that's, like, a little bit of a cheat, because she is in Dragon Ball Z, just very briefly at the very end. It's also the same actress that plays Videl, so you kind of have, like, there's a more Dragon Ball legacy just built into the DNA of that character. But all of, like, the villains and Baby and, like, Omega Shenron, like, that stuff's awful. Super Android 17, it's like, none of them are particularly interesting or well realized, and none of them feel essential or memorable or, like, vital parts of the franchise. And Dragon Ball Super has, like, a bunch of characters like that. Because you've also got stuff like Caulifla and Kale in the Super TV show and stuff like that. And then, yeah, here Hedo in particular, Hedo and the 2 androids, the Gammas, in particular feel like, oh, I want to see these characters again. In the same way that when Broly and his gang pop up in the middle of this movie, while I think that scene was a little bit too long for its own good and probably could have been cut down a little bit to be more focused, like, seeing those characters reminded me, oh yeah, these characters feel like they're supposed to be here. Like, you want to cut back to and see who these characters are and, like, what they're doing and what they're up to. And it's one of, like, the great successes of Super, and it continues in this movie, is that you get new characters that if we never saw Dr. Hedo in Gamma 1 again, I would be super bummed, because they are awesome characters that you want to see go on more adventures. And I was really happy to see that they like got sort of grandfathered into a spot that makes them characters that you can revisit because they're in the Capsule Corporation at the end of the movie. And so it's like, okay, now we can revisit these characters and it feels appropriate. And that's one of those things that helps Dragon Ball feel like a still living, breathing franchise. Is it's not just mining exclusively classic characters and classic ideas. It is also doing new stuff and giving us new interesting characters to play with.
I think, rewatching it, that's the thing that disappointed me most about Resurrection F when I rewatched it, is that, like, its only idea is let's bring back Frieza. Mm-hmm. And it's fun to see Ryusei Nakao again and some of that stuff. But other than that, that movie doesn't contribute a lot. Whereas all these other ones, like the Universe 6 versus Universe 7 arc, which was the first original arc in Super, you got Champa, you got Hit, you got the, what was the alternate version of Frieza named?
Chill? Was it?
Chill, yeah.
Yeah.
But he was really fun. They had a lot of things there with characters that you wanted to see come back, and Champa and Beerus during the Universe Survival arc later was a ton of fun, right? And so it's just been very consistent at that. Dragon Ball should always be expanding a little bit, even if you're going to do callbacks. And this movie is callback heavy, and it's, it is about the Red Ribbon Army kind of coming back, but it's in a forward-looking way. It's with all new characters. It's not like Commander Red somehow survived, and we're doing that again. We've, successfully evolved, and I think that's fun.
Yeah.
I also just want to say, maybe we can do a bigger section on voice acting later, but Dr. Hedo, he's voiced by Miyu Irano, kind of steals the show in parts of this movie. I think just a awesome vocal performance. And that one, we can talk about the Gammas, they brought in two fucking heavies for them.
Yeah.
But Miyu Irano, who I've seen in a couple of things, just great here.
Yeah, no, he's a great actor, and it's a great pick. I mean, Dr. Hedo is just so much fun. And I'd just like to get it out of the way for people who maybe don't know, because they didn't try to translate it for the English version or whatever. There is a classic Dragon Ball pun with his name. So Dr. Garo, Garo is a word for barf or throw up, and so is Hedo. Hedo is a different word that also can mean vomit. So it is the most disgusting of all of the Dragon Ball puns, and it's fun because I don't think I ever even really associated Dr. Garo with that, because there was no other character in his sphere that had that pun. And so they have, I don't know if that was always an idea that Toriyama had, that was why Dr. Garo is called Dr. Garo, or if that was we can make a pun retroactively out of his name now that we're making a new Dr. Garo related character. And so they decided they're going to load him up with the nastiest pun of all time.
Because that's the fun thing about Dragon Ball names, is it's not just their puns, but their pun families. So
yes.
All the Saiyans are vegetables. All of the Son family are different foods, or playing on the Go, and stuff like that. Uh-huh. All of the gods, like Beerus, Whis, and Champa, are different alcohols, beer, wine, and champagne. Just anything like that. And so now we have it for the Dr. Garo family, but it's for vomit. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I also, I love his, recurring line that he says the same way over and over and over again of I have modified my skin to be able to withstand impacts of a certain degree. It's such a specific line he does, and he does it identically 5 times in the movie, and every time he says it made me crack up. It's just because it's so there's something about the to a certain degree my skin can withstand very specific impacts. It's very funny. That character's
yes.
Bit, I think, is consistently really funny throughout the movie, and a lot of it is that Miyu Irano's line deliveries are really, really sharp.
For Gamma 1 and 2, two things about them. One, they are some of my favorite Akira Toriyama designs ever. I don't know what it is. They look like he could have drawn them in the prime of Dragon Ball Z. They just look so maybe even not Dragon Ball Z, but Dragon Ball era, or some of the early Dragon Quest stuff. They are such cool Toriyama designs. But then, man, talk about getting some great guest stars in, because they are voiced by Hiroshi Kamiya and Mamoru Miyano, two actors who, if you are new to Japanimation Station, maybe you haven't heard us talk about yet, but if you have listened to us for any length of time beyond that, we love these two.
Yeah.
for the whole host of different things. Mamoru Miyano, we talked to death about with Gundam 00, but of course we love him from Persona 5 and Death Note and all sorts of things. And Hiroshi Kamiya, you named the best voice actor of the decade in 2019. Yes. So, yeah, and I love him as, like, Law in One Piece, as the Penguin in Polar Bear Cafe. Mm-hmm. He's in a million different things. But what a joy to have them together in a Dragon Ball movie as these characters. It's so cool.
Yeah, and it's just really good casting. Like, it's not just that they're, like, great voice actors, but I feel like they fit the characters so well. You know, that Hiroshi Kamiya's Gamma 1 is, like, this much more stern, serious, like, you know, no jokes kind of character, and then Miyano Mamoru's character is, like, kind of a little bit wackier and kind of bouncing off the wall and is very, like, showboaty. And then, you know, he gets to sacrifice himself at the end of the movie and kind of be part of that big, like, emotional core and sort of be the superhero at the end. But yeah, they're just really vibrant characters with really vibrant performances. And even though they don't have, like, particularly Gamma 1 doesn't have a huge amount of screen time. You know, this is a very tight movie. It's like 90 minutes. It's got a huge number of characters. And obviously it's got to, like, pay off all your Piccolo and Gohan stuff and all of that. So it's not like Gamma 1 and 2. You're not spending, like, 40 minutes of screen time on these characters. But they make such a strong impact with, like, the time that they do have. And it feels like, you know, they grow and change over the course of the movie in a very clear way. I like this idea of them, you know, being the kind of classically kind of misguided superhero character that then comes around at the end. You know, it's almost like a classic superhero team up dynamic of the, like, misunderstanding between two groups of superhero type characters that then they have to realize at a certain point, we're actually really on the same side. Anytime two groups of superheroes encounter each other, they have to fight over some misunderstanding and then team up later to fight some big bad. And that's effectively the plot structure of the movie. But it means you get this nice time with the Gammas where they're your bad guys technically, but you know that they've, you know, got a good heart, and then you get to see them kind of recognize that and realize they're on the wrong side and turn against them. Like, it's just a very satisfying, clear character arc that's so sharply written with the very kind of efficient use of time in the plotting this movie has.
You know, friends becoming, or enemies becoming friends, is one of my favorite, like, plot contrivances to begin with. Dragon Ball is built on the engine of enemies becoming friends. From the very beginning, you know, Krillin is, like, Goku's rival, and then he's his best friend. And almost every major villain in Dragon Ball becomes a friend or an ally in some way at some point. And I think this movie is a really, really well done version of that, in that Hedo is clearly never a bad guy like Dr. Gero was. He's a little insensitive at the beginning of the movie, but he learns the error of his ways. And then Gamma 1 and 2 are very good. And, like, I love that Gamma 2's whole thing is that he really enthusiastically believes in his mission as a superhero.
Yeah.
And, like, has a cool, like, kind of moral compass, and he's misguided because he's been pointed in the wrong direction. But he's very quick to catch on to things. And this is another one where just the background details are so good. But in one of the big exposition scenes at the Red Ribbon Army base, where Piccolo is, like, in disguise and kind of hanging out on the side of the room, you just have throughout that scene Gamma 2 annoying Gamma 1 in the background by trying to do poses and trying to, like, just get him into the whole superhero thing. And Gamma 2 is the one, I think, possibly diegetically spitting out sound effects into the world because Piccolo can see them.
He has, in the background of one scene, like, this is one of those things you're talking about where, like, there's so many good details. You can see in the background in one of those scenes that he is doing poses in the corner, but you're seeing him from the back, and so you see that the sound effects are like a hologram that's projecting out behind him. So it's like it only looks that way from, like, the right camera angle. So as soon as the camera angle moves, you can tell that it's like a hologram because the image distorts. And that, I thought, was an incredibly funny character detail.
Yes. You know, so it's so sweet on that level. And then, of course, when the turn comes at the end of the movie and Gamma 2 sacrifices himself, but also trusts Gamma 1 to go save Dr. Hedo and, like, help save the day, and Gamma 1 jumps into action right away. It's sweet, and it's even tear-jerky at points, you know, when Piccolo says he was a superhero, you know, and then Gamma 1 says back, and so were all of you. Yeah, I teared up a little bit. That's just a beautiful little moment. It's basic, but it's phenomenally well done, you know?
I mean, it's just the thing of, like, the movie doesn't have, like, these deep human themes that are going to make you question the world around you, right? It's got a very sort of simple action movie kind of storytelling approach, but it's so effective in that range of what it's trying to do. And it is about like those kind of like simple, strong moral goods or whatever that it gets to thematize around. And the growth of the main characters, all of whom, particularly like Gohan and the Gammas, demonstrate like a lot of really strong character growth that you get to really play with by the end of the movie. And so yeah, like it is a really effective climax, not because it's like the most original thing in the world, but because it's just really well executed, and the focus of the movie is so strong at developing those ideas that when you get to the end, I think it is very emotionally effective. And I kind of do hope that they find, it's Dragon Ball, that they find a way to just bring Gamma 2 back, because I'd feel really bad for Mamoru that he finally got a Dragon Ball role, because I know I've seen in like interviews that he always talks about that like Dragon Ball was like the thing that inspired him to be a voice actor as a kid. And so I just remember like I've seen like a couple of interviews with him where he has mentioned that and other things. It's just like, oh, please don't just kill off his character. Like, come on, it's Dragon Ball. Everyone comes back. Please bring Gamma 2 back so he gets to be in more Dragon Ball stuff.
I think they can do it, and, even if not, he did get this whole movie to himself.
Yeah.
It's better than what happened to poor Kazuya Nakai, who was in Resurrection F for like 2 minutes as one of the people who helps bring Frieza back, and then he gets killed by Frieza, and that felt like a poor use of the great voice actor Kazuya Nakai finally getting to come into Dragon Ball. Mamoru Miyano got an extremely memorable turn in one of the best Dragon Ball movies, so that is something to be proud of. And yeah, it's... as you say, it is not, this is not Showa. This is not questioning, the nature of human existence and morality. But it doesn't need to. That's not what it's trying to be. And I would love you to point me to not you, but anyone, a 99-minute, this is a 99-minute movie. Point me to an American superhero movie that is 99 minutes and is this good at the basics of the genre, You can't. Now, this movie has a bit of a leg up because we know most of the characters, but even still, it's, a lot of new stuff. And it's very, very efficient on that level. But let's go back and talk about the existing characters, Sean, because this is a Piccolo movie, essentially.
Yes.
This is... And like, not just like... we talked about with the Broly movie that Broly is effectively the protagonist of the Broly movie, but it's not quite as clear-cut, because you still have Goku and Vegeta, in it a lot. Broly doesn't, talk a whole lot. His agency isn't, 100% there. It's sort of like talking about, like, who's the protagonist of Avengers Infinity War, right? And it's like, oh, it's basically Thanos, but, of course, you can kind of debate it. This movie Piccolo is the main character. He's in every scene. He's our POV. And he's fantastic. I love the early section where we just see like Piccolo's daily life, where he has this little house out in the plains somewhere where he can go and meditate on a mountain, and he has a little cell phone that clearly Gohan and Videl gave him because he did not choose that case.
Every time he holds the cell phone, he dangles it from the top like it's like a bag of poop or something. He's just like, get this away from me. I love that.
I know.
He has no idea how to control a cell phone.
No, but he has his little cell phone because they call him to pick up Videl, and he is training Videl, and he's the best Dragon Ball dad, as we've always known, and he's basically been adopted into their family. He is part of Son Gohan's family, and he is basically like an uncle or something to Pan, and, Videl and Gohan both rely on him. And he's a little fed up with that they're kind of a little too absentee and relying on him too much. But one of the great little details there is that they bring back the detail that Namekians don't eat. They just drink water. Yes. And so I love that Pan knows that, because Pan, one of the first shots of her is giving him a mineral water, which is a great little shot, and Piccolo drinks the mineral water. And then later on, Videl on the phone says, hey, if you pick up Pan, I'll get you something tasty. And he says, I only drink water. And she says, oh, okay, we'll get you another Nuigurumi, another, stuffed animal, basically. Yeah. And then you see, they've been giving him all these stuffed animals, and Piccolo doesn't necessarily care about them, but he doesn't throw them away either. So he just has a pile of them in his house. That is one of the best little character details I think I've ever seen in a movie to tell you about where someone is at. It's really well done.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like that whole opening stretch, once you cut to Piccolo and see his life and him training Pan, you set up one that Pan can't fly yet, which is a great payoff for the end of the movie, which he does learn how to fly. But yeah, I love seeing Piccolo's little setup. I love that he's got this, like, it's just an empty room with a chair, like a throne style chair. That is
It looks
almost
like King Piccolo's chair. Yeah,
yes.
like throne.
I think it is meant to be like evocative of Demon King Piccolo to a certain extent, which I think is very fun. He's got his chair, and then he's got like a little table or something in the corner with all the stuffed animals. And as you say, it's like a very telling character detail that he doesn't know what to do with them. He doesn't care about them. He doesn't particularly want them, but he's not going to get rid of them because they're present from Gohan and Gohan's family, right? And so it's like you have that the sentimentality that Piccolo has, even with his like sort of gruff exterior. And then he also has a big plateau mountain to go meditate on top of right by where his house is, which is, of course, what Piccolo... I have to imagine that there's somewhere near the vicinity, there's a giant waterfall also that he can meditate under, if sometimes that's what he wants to do, is meditate under a waterfall instead of on top of a giant plateau. Which is... I just love. Like, it's one of those things about Super in particular as a part of the Dragon Ball franchise that has always been very fun, and again is the thing that has distinguished it from GT, is that it is very good at capturing these little moments of life with these characters. And some of my favorite episodes of the Super TV show were the episodes that were just like, Goku's gotta farm this field, you know, like he's got to figure out how to do that. You know, here's them doing a dumb baseball game. Here's, you know, running some errands. It's just like the kind of Dragon Ball does slice of life, which Super gives itself space to do every now and then, is some of the most satisfying stuff with it, because these characters are so fun and we have so much connection to them. And even if obviously this movie is not just a movie of that stuff, it, like Battle of Gods, which also had a lot of that stuff, like it finds the space to just give us windows into the lives of these characters and just spend some time with them. And it's some of the most fun stuff in this movie. If you're a Dragon Ball fan, which if you're, you know, not a Dragon Ball fan, I don't know why you chose to go see the movie. But if you're a fan of the characters already, like you just like eat up all this like stuff of getting to see the homes of these characters and what they do on their kind of day off.
Yes, my favorite one of those in the Super TV series was, it's in the first episode, which is also where Goku is plowing the field, is it's Gohan and Videl out kind of on a date, and they're at a bookstore, and she buys him the Muzukashi Hon, which is a joke. As an academic, I make all the time. I love that Gohan, because Videl is like, you got this book you were looking for, and the book literally says on the cover, I think in Roman letters, Muzukashi Hon, which just means difficult book, and I think that is one of the best jokes in Dragon Ball, is the Muzukashi Hon. And it's a little story about how Gohan feels like he can't give Videl back as much as she gives him because she comes from this rich family, but then they come to an understanding. It's a very sweet little story, as most Gohan and Videl stuff is, because it's a surprisingly good romance from an author who doesn't do romance that well. You're getting an Amber Alert there in Texas, it seems like. So, just so people know, Sean's fire alarm is not going off. No. But anyway, you know, I love that in Super. I think here... You know, the other thing about the way they characterize Piccolo here is I like the feeling that, you know, Gohan and Videl are not being bad parents or anything, but they have their own lives, and Piccolo kind of is the retired guy, right? He's the grandpa. He feels a little bit like the world, I think, has passed him by. There's that moment where Pan says, you fought Grandpa once, right? And he has to go, Grandpa? Oh, you mean Son. Like, because he's like, oh, right, your grandpa is Goku. This makes me feel old. And I think one of the most special things about this whole movie is Toshio Furukawa's performance as Piccolo. We love Furukawa, one of our favorites in a bunch of different shows, including, you know, in Gundam, he is Kai Shiden. And we just talked about him with the Mobile Suit Gundam Kukuru's Doan's Island movie. And he's great in that, and he's an old man, he can still effectively play a teenager, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in this movie, I think he does something really interesting in that I think he intentionally leans into his voice sounding older. I think he makes Piccolo sound older, and that Piccolo is just a little more advanced than the other characters, and that is a character dynamic, and him kind of like getting back into the swing of things, but also kind of teaching the youngins. And I don't know if I can point to many anime where an actor who is that much older, who's played a character for this long, really gets to like just play the age a little bit. And I think it's really special. And I think it's one of the reasons why you've got to see this in Japanese, because it's a very unique thing to this movie that makes it so wonderful to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a thing where most anime series don't have the characters age that much, right? Like usually it's something where you'll have your like Doraemon or Lupin the Third and stuff like that, or like Detective Conan, where the same actors have been playing those characters for decades. And then eventually with some of those, like Lupin the Third, you then get like new actors come in when old actors pass away, which happened recently, and stuff like that. But typically, like those, Lupin the Third is Lupin the Third. He has been since the fucking 60s. He will always be like in his like late 20s or something, maybe early 30s. Like that is just the age of that
like
character.
The Simpsons in the United States, right? The
Exactly.
Simpsons are always the Simpsons, even if time moves on.
Yeah, but with Dragon Ball, like the timeline has moved a lot, right? I mean, Goku's got to be what, like in his early 50s, maybe at this point. He's a grandfather. He's a grandfather who had a kid when he was very young, and his kid had a kid when he was young. So it's like he's not going to be like 80 or something, but like he's getting up there in years. And Piccolo, I don't know how Namekians age. Obviously, he's not like a giant, like wrinkled eggplant or whatever, which we've seen very, very old Namekians that have a certain look to them. Like he doesn't look like Kami did in original Dragon Ball, but like he's definitely getting up there in years, and he is old. And he is like a surrogate grandfather type figure to Pan. If he is a surrogate father figure to Gohan, that's like kind of his relationship with Pan. And so, yeah, like it is a thing where the story gives Furukawa space to play that age. And I do think I'm with you that it is an intentional thing that the movie is kind of leaning into. Because I think part of the like Piccolo-ness of the movie that's very fun is that there's a little bit of a action movie cliche of like the retired cop that gets pulled back in for one last job kind of thing of like, can I still do this? Like, am I still that man? Can I Goku and Vegeta aren't here. Can I, be the person on the front lines doing this fight? And it kind of like, puts a pep back into his step, and then he gets his whole crazy new orange Piccolo form and all that crazy shit happens. But like that dynamic is very satisfying to see that age of Piccolo be played, and then Piccolo kind of like getting his groove back basically over the course of the movie.
Yeah, it's so fun. Him and young Pan is like criminally adorable, right?
Yes.
Like, and part of that is one, I was overjoyed with how much young Pan we get, because Pan is a great underused Dragon Ball character, and we really get to know her here, and it is still Yuko Minaguchi, who has played Videl since the character was introduced in Z. There was a brief period where Yuko Minaguchi almost left the franchise. This was during Kai, when Daisuke Gori passed away. She said she wasn't sure, because Daisuke Gori played Mr. Satan, who is her father on the show, and she wasn't sure if she wanted to keep doing it without him. And she actually did not voice Videl on the Buu arc of Kai, the final chapters that they finally produced. But she did come back for Battle of Gods, because I think Battle of Gods clearly gave the character more to do. It's a small role, but she has that there. And then on Super, and then here, and now she's also always voiced Pan. And now she gets to do something that we've really never seen, which is the 3-year-old little kid version of Pan. Her voice for Pan, again, criminally adorable. It is such a good vocal performance. It put the biggest smile on my face. I've always loved her as Videl and as Pan. And it is so cool to get to see her play this kind of like full-throated Toriyama-inflected incarnation of the character, opposite Piccolo, opposite Toshio Furukawa. What an absolute utter joy.
Yeah, it's so great. It's like it's one of the best things about the movie moving the timeline forward, which I love. I'm glad that, especially since it's been years since Super Broly, that we are now, I don't think we're not yet at the like epilogue or whatever from the original manga / the TV show for Z, but we're much closer to that point in the timeline, and Pan is several years older, so she gets to talk and be a more active character. And Yuka Minaguchi has always been amazing as both Videl and as Pan. The most like both the best and most frustrating thing in Dragon Ball GT is that Pan is awesome and that GT doesn't know it. That Yuka Minaguchi is awesome as Pan, and GT doesn't have any good material to give her past a certain point. And so yes, it's so gratifying to have Pan here and like as an actual character. And one of my favorite moments in the movie is all the stuff at the end with her learning how to fly. One of my favorite shots in the movie is the POV shot from Pan's perspective as she's flying past all the other characters and then straight into Gohan and then flying up. Like, what an amazing shot that like really like there's a lot of stuff in this movie that like hit me particularly hard in like a nostalgic kind of way, because again, if you're American, like you started with Dragon Ball with Gohan. And so like the Gohan Piccolo thing is like deep in my like roots is like the core of what Dragon Ball is in many ways, and like Gohan is like the character I most deeply identify with because it is what I grew up with. And so getting all of this, it's like for me the most emotional thing in Dragon Ball Super is the episode in the Trunks arc where future Trunks sees, like, gets to spend like a day with our Gohan and see that this version of Gohan get to live a happy life. And like, there's something about that hits me really hard. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff in this where you get to see Gohan sort of having to learn, to be a more attentive father. He maybe learned some bad lessons from Goku in that regard, where for Gohan it's studying, whereas for Goku it was fighting. But that the really loving relationship he has with Pan, getting to see that once Gohan has to move into action, like he's there 100%. All of that mix of stuff for the movie is really powerful, and Pan is like a really powerful focusing mechanism for all of those kinds of emotions, I think.
I agree with all of that. That shot at the end of Pan flying, if the rest of the movie's like 3D visuals had been crap, it would be worth it for the shot of her flying, which is a purely 3D. You have to do that with a digital virtual camera, right?
Yeah.
And it's beautifully done. And I so agree with you about Gohan, because Gohan has always been my... favorite's almost the wrong word. He is Dragon Ball to me, in a weird way, because I know Dragon Ball, we also start with young Goku and see him grow up, but I think because Goku is the eternal child, it's a little different. I think watching Gohan be a kid, the inciting incident of Dragon Ball Z is him getting kidnapped, and just watching Gohan's maturation from that point to the end of the Cell arc. And then, there have been varying opinions on this over the years, and I think, different stories after Z have kind of helped smooth it out. But I've always liked that Gohan doesn't become Goku number 2 when we get to the Buu arc. I think the idea that Gohan lives his own life is good, and I think this movie in particular finds a really nice way of kind of threading the needle, of that Gohan living his own life doesn't have to just mean he never fights. It also doesn't mean that he's only a scholar. It's that he is different than Goku because he can be a better father, and he can have his job, and he can be a fighter, and he can do all these things, and he can learn from the mistakes of his father. He can learn good lessons from his other father figure in Piccolo, and I think the character is just so unique on that level. Masako Nozawa has always done, I think, her performance as Goku is one thing. I think in some ways her performance as Gohan is even more impressive in a lot of areas of the series. And this movie's actually a good example of it. But yeah, I love all of that about it. And, just seeing how much Pan loves her dad is adorable. I did look it up, by the way, Sean, and Pan is 4 years old at the time of the Tenkaichi Budokai that ends Dragon Ball Z. So here we are about a year from the end of Z. So I feel like whenever we pick up with Super next, they're going to have to confront the point in the timeline where the end of Z happens, and then it's time to rewrite Dragon Ball GT, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe the next movie can just be Dragon Ball Super Oob. I actually think that's not a bad idea for a movie. Anyway.
Dragon Ball Super. There you go. That's a free title for you, Toei. You can just take that one. I'm not even going to charge you.
They're not going to take that one, I hope. Anyway, but yeah, so I don't even know where we were. But let's talk about the scene where Piccolo goes to visit Gohan at his house.
Yes.
And I love that Piccolo knows not to use the front door because he knows where Gohan is. He's in his study, and he's doing his work. And Gohan's really happy to see Piccolo, but he's completely obsessed with his work. And the joke, and God, the way Masako Nozawa does this line is so funny, of, I'm studying this beetle. At this point in the year, it turns yellow and glows. It's like a Super Saiyan. And Piccolo is like, this is what you're doing? I laughed so hard at that. Again, Gohan... As an academic myself, I feel like Gohan is kind of my spiritual character in Dragon Ball, and I love that moment so much.
Yeah, it is. It's such a kind of trivial thing, but that he's studying, but also when it's hey, biology is important and zoology is interesting. But yes, that whole conversation between Piccolo and Gohan is great. I love that Piccolo scrapes his weird long Namekian fingernails on the window to get Gohan's attention, which he does twice in the movie. And yeah, that whole conversation about Gohan, you need to train more, and him magicking up the classic Piccolo set of clothes on him so that Gohan is sitting there studying with the big fucking cape and the shoulder pads and stuff and everything is great.
Yes.
Yeah, but there is a like Piccolo and Gohan's relationship, I just think is so interesting because, Gohan, I think it still does very much see Piccolo as a father figure still. And there's that sort of promptness with which he always replies to Piccolo when like Piccolo is talking to him, like Gohan's always like, "Hi," and he's speaking in honorific, and it's like there's a very like attentive quality to him. But also he's much more mature, right? And so I think they're like a little bit more able to talk on equal footing. And there's something about like the nuances of the way the dialogue is written between them that I love, that it really feels like a father talking to their adult son, like, and that is the kind of that have like a really loving relationship with each other, but that they have both kind of like grown and are moving in different paths in their lives, and they're not necessarily living together or seeing each other all the time. Like they're really well written in that way to capture that specific quality of their relationship.
Oh, it's amazing, yeah. The depth of the character writing there is so rewarding to see, that it's just one of those relationships that you feel the weight of its many years existence when it's happening, And this is also where we have to talk about Masako Nozawa. We have spent probably hours across our various podcasts singing her praises. We always will. One of the most impressive things she's ever done, I think, is the differentiation between Goku and Gohan in the series. In that she has a little kid Goku voice and a little kid Gohan voice, and they're easily separable. You can easily tell which one is which. And even more impressively, adult Gohan, which, up until the Super era she'd only done for, the last 100 episodes of Z, is such a interesting take off of Goku in that it's extremely distinct. You can have your eyes closed and you will always know adult Gohan from adult Goku. And I think this movie puts really good use to that, because she's only Goku for a couple minutes in this movie. Her main performance in this film is as adult Gohan, and it's really cool to see her get to stretch her legs in that role. And I just love there's a little bit of sheepishness to adult Gohan. He's a little shyer. He's obviously much more polite. His speaking style is very different than Goku. He's not the person who comes up and says, "Oh, ora Goku," Yeah. He will answer Piccolo with a "hi," which is something that Goku never says, right? And all of that stuff. But it's such a loving performance when he's with Pan. You have all of what you're talking about of opposite Piccolo, the depth of that relationship. When it gets into the big battle stuff. She is just so well attuned to the differences in these characters, even if it is all her voice. Masako Nozawa is 85 years old. I know she will not be with us forever, and I just want to say it as many times as we can while she's still here. I don't think there has ever been a better person at this craft than Masako Nozawa, and this is another example of that feather in her cap.
Yeah, it is like, it's one of those things that's kind of unbelievable, because it's not as if she's doing crazy stuff with her voice. She's not making a completely different sounding voice. She's still very much within her natural sounding register as a person. You can tell it's Masako Nozawa, and it's true of any role she plays. She's not the kind of actress that transforms her voice for these kinds of roles, which you will get sometimes with actors, particularly if they're playing two characters in the same series. But yeah, she is able to hold a conversation between three different sewn characters, Goku, Gohan, and Goten, and you can tell all of them. And then in this movie, she has to pull out teen Goten, which is a voice she hasn't had to do in a long time. And when that happened, I was like, oh right, yeah, this is how an older Goten sounds. That's right. And you can tell the difference, even though she's not totally trying to transform her voice or anything. And so much of it is just in the subtleties of the ways that the character talks, which some of that is in the writing, obviously the specific words they say, but it's also just the way that they kind of carry themselves through their voice that she's able to make very clear. And yeah, I'm with you that it's very gratifying to see her get to do so much with adult Gohan, which we just haven't gotten this much focus on. All right, we've gotten quite a bit of adult Gohan in Dragon Ball Super, particularly in the universe or the survival arc at the end of Super. There's a decent amount of adult Gohan stuff, but it's always sort of having to share all this other time with so many other different subplots in the TV show, that getting this really concentrated dose of that character and just get to kind of really live with that performance for 90 minutes is very, very fun.
I think you can feel that as an actor it's probably more of a challenge, because I think she can do Goku in her sleep. I think,
Yes.
like, Masuko Nozawa can do Goku the same way she can probably breathe. And I think one of the great things about her Goku is she clearly takes such joy in that, you know? It's almost an alter ego at this point. But when it's Gohan, like, we're not, you know, she probably does voice work for Goku every week of the year for something different, right?
It has to be, yeah.
Yeah. You know, but adult Gohan isn't that kind of thing. And so it's really like, okay, where is this person's head at? Where are they in this relationship versus this relationship? There's like a lot of actorly choices being made there that are a lot of fun to hear. And when you're opposite, you know, Toshio Furukawa, you know, you've just got two of the all-time greats in a room doing a role that has, at this point, almost 40 years of history behind it. Where else are you going to see that? It's so cool.
Yeah, so yeah, and that's like just so much of that weight of the history is present in some of those big moments between those two characters that it's very, very powerful.
And again, I love the thing about the beetle that Gohan is investigating. There is, I don't know if you've ever seen this, Sean. There was it was only ever a game in Korea and China, but there was a game called Dragon Ball Online, which was a Dragon Ball MMO, and Toriyama did contribute to Dragon Ball Online an almost like Lord of the Rings appendix-style timeline of events after Z. And if you've never read it, go find that timeline, because it's actually really cool, and I love a lot of the ideas in it. And one of them is that Gohan, as a scholar, his big project becomes teaching the people of Earth how to control their ki. And in the world of Dragon Ball Online, this is the thing that allows you to have an MMO where everyone is flying. But I can kind of imagine coming out of this movie a version of Gohan's life where he combines his training and his scholarship and does something like that. That would be really cool if they ever want to do a story with that in Dragon Ball. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, that would be interesting if they wanted to push further into, like, Gohan's like scholarly side impacting the rest of the story, you know.
Yeah. Anyway, but Gohan is great. And then, you know, the plot from there is Piccolo is like, well, this kid's a lost cause for the time being. So I'm going to go investigate the Red Ribbon Army. And the first big step of that is summoning the dragon. And we get another appearance by Dende, who... Did we ever see Dende in the TV series Dragon Ball Super? He's in Battle of Gods.
I'm pretty sure Dende popped up once or twice, yeah.
He's a pretty rare appearance these days, but I always love seeing Dende. And I love... So we do get another dragon summon here. I do appreciate that all 4 modern Dragon Ball movies have had a summoning of the dragon. Because there are stretches of Dragon Ball where the Dragon Balls are not a thing. I like that all 4 movies have had a wish, which is very funny to me. And this one involves Piccolo asking Dende if he can make the dragon stronger. And this is Toriyama taking a chance to kind of humorously deal with a continuity error, which is that the dragon, after the Cell arc, can alternately do 2 or 3 wishes depending on what point in the story they're at.
Yeah.
And I love that it's just Dende going like, oh yeah, I can change it whenever I want. Like, you know, Kami, he hadn't been to Namek in forever. He didn't remember how to do it all. But I'm a Namekian. I know what I'm doing. And he has the weird, like, water he does and all of that. I thought that was a very funny little moment.
Let me get this super holy water out and pour the super holy water on the dragon statue, and we're good to go.
I would say that was a reference, if not for the fact that I am 100% certain that Akira Toriyama does not even know about the Garlic Jr. arc of Dragon Ball Z.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we are referencing there. Because if you don't know about that arc, you're better off. Anyway, so we do get the dragon summoning. We get Bulma there for that scene. The dragon successfully draws out Piccolo's power, gives him a little something extra. I love a saucy version of the dragon who's just giving out freebies. That's very funny to me.
Yeah, I do really love, like, you know, the peacetime of Super feels like it has affected the dragon as well as all the other characters that, you know, that Bulma is regularly summoning the dragon for, like, trivial Bulma-esque wishes, which I love the idea of. It is, like, to keep them dormant so that it doesn't attract like Frieza or whoever else to come get the Dragon Balls, which is like a legitimately really smart idea. Like, I was kind of like, oh, that makes so much sense. Yeah, you should just be constantly using the Dragon Balls so they're constantly stones, so that like there's like no reason for evil aliens or whoever, robot people, whatever, to show up and try to get your Dragon Balls, because it's like, hey, you gotta wait a fucking year, man. Like, get in line.
It's a perfectly Bulma plot point in that it's very smart, and it's Bulma using her resources like materially and of her brain, because it's like no one else in Dragon Ball is smart enough to do that. But then she uses it for a completely vain end, which, to be fair, like her wish in Dragon Ball originally was either for a boyfriend or a lifetime supply of strawberries. So she has always made these kind of wishes on the dragon, and that is very funny to me.
I mean, it's the eternal joke of Dragon Ball is that, like, the only thing that people typically use the dragon for is, like, totally trivial bullshit, you know? I mean, it goes
Yes.
back to the original Red Ribbon Saga, too. That whole dynamic and that idea of using the dragon that way is very fun. And I just like the dragon has this just very, like, casual back and forth with Piccolo. It's like, oh, Lord Piccolo, hey, how are you doing? It's like, oh, I'll throw in a little something extra for you there, buddy. And then, like, he just so casually grants the wishes that Bulma says, like, without it being like and I want you to make my eyelashes 2 millimeters long, whatever she says. She's just sort of, like, chatting, and he's like, okay, yeah, I can do that. Brr, and his eyes glow. I love it. I love that the dragon just, like, doesn't give a fuck anymore.
He is the most overqualified plastic surgeon on Earth.
Yes.
And that is his entire affect. No, I love that. They also do something with the dragon that I feel like is unique to 3D, because I think in hand-drawn animation you're not going to do this as much. He's constantly moving while he's granting wishes, kind of like you see a Chinese dragon often move in art and stuff. And that's just a little detail I love that they threw in there. He's a little more active as a physical presence. That was cool.
Yes, yeah, because he's usually kind of in that very kind of static, curled pose in the sky. Because he's a very, very detailed creature design, so it would be very expensive, certainly on a TV show, to try to get that thing moving constantly.
Yes, exactly. So then we have Piccolo's entire undercover investigation of the Red Ribbon Army, which is wonderful. Piccolo in disguise, Piccolo wearing, like, how many actual costumes has Piccolo been in Dragon Ball? Because it's like his, like, original evil gi, his, like, training gi with Gohan, the one episode where he got his driver's license, and then I feel like this one with the Red Ribbon Army stuff, and it's just fun to see him in another costume.
Yes, finally the Dragon Ball video games have a new outfit they can put Piccolo in. It's like, yes, we could let's get up another one, boys. We've got to make a new Dragon Ball game. We've got, like, 3 new characters and a new Piccolo outfit. Let's go.
Indeed. We need Dragon Ball Fighters 2, or whatever they're going to do with that next.
Dragon Ball. It's finally time to make a Dragon Ball Z Universe 3, guys, because we got another movie. We could get some more out.
It actually has been a while since Xenoverse 2, if they want to do more of that. But anyway, yeah, I love that whole section. I love the entire idea of, like, it's also like, if Piccolo were if Goku is the protagonist of the movie, he's just going to fly in there and punch people, right?
Yes. As he did to the Red Ribbon Army once upon a time.
Yes, he did. And Piccolo is, I'm going to go do some subterfuge and learn about things. And it means that the whole, like, shape of the movie is shaped around Piccolo as a protagonist and the kind of choices he would make, and that's awesome.
Yeah, like, I love that you get to follow him along as he's sort of trying to craft these plans of trying to contact Whis. He goes and gets the Senzu beans, right? So that, like, Korin-sama and Yajirobe get a little cameo, because Yajirobe's got to show up somewhere, somehow, in a Dragon Ball thing. And, you know, he's got his whole, like, sort of little plan that he's working on, and these, like, you know, sub-plans and stuff like that, and he's always working on ideas. And yes, it's a very different approach than Goku, who certainly... Goku is a lot of things. The man with a plan is not one of them.
I loved Yajirobe's appearance because even though he doesn't have any lines, I could tell it was Mayumi Tanaka doing the eating voice of Yajirobe, because she is in the movie as Krillin, so she's there. And you could tell they like, at the end of the session were like, and can you just, like, eat something into the mic for a minute here for Yajirobe? It's like, oh, sure. That was very funny. We should probably mention, do you want to mention the scene that kind of comes in the middle of all this where we do go off to Beerus's planet?
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing where I think if I were to identify one weakness in the movie, for me it would be this scene goes on too long. It feels too much of a fan service thing, which I appreciate. Like, I like getting to see Goku and Vegeta and Beerus and Whis, and I particularly like the idea of the Broly crew being on Beerus's planet. I think all that's super fun, but also it's like probably like a 5 to 10 minute scene that needed to be like a minute. That all it's there to do, really, in the plot, is to establish why Goku and Vegeta are not involved on Earth, and that scene establishes that very quickly, and then it just keeps on going. And it's like, for such a tight movie, that's the only place where there's, like, a bunch of fat on the film.
Yeah, I agree. I think in my heart of hearts, I would have just not had Goku and Vegeta in this movie. And I think I would have had, like, Piccolo can't reach them, and then the end credits scene would have been, like, we cut away to Beerus's planet and do a smaller version of this scene. But it's still, like, I like everything in the scene. Like, every beat of it is fun. I love the general evolution of Beerus, where, like, he is still a fearsome person. He is still extremely powerful. There's the scene in Super where he kills Zamasu. That, you know, he's terrifying when he wants to be. But, like, Beerus genuinely enjoys the company of Goku and his friends. And, like, I feel like he would sooner protect Goku than he would destroy Goku at this point, right? He's never going to say that, but, like, Beerus kind of likes this whole entourage he's got up on his planet that gives him food and ice cream and stuff. And Whis, I think, enjoys having people to train. And then, of course, there's the joke here where Beerus has a crush on Chilai, who is one of Broly's friends, and that is very funny. I like seeing Broly's crew. I think the other thing this scene is there for is, like, we haven't had Dragon Ball in 4 years.
Yeah,
so it would be, even though I think the movie itself would be stronger with less of this, for Dragon Ball fans, you want to know, hey, what's happening with Broly? Are Goku and Vegeta still working on this and that? And I think, like, having that check-in does make sense on that level. And again, it is a fun scene. And when Goku and Vegeta start their sparring match, it's a legitimately great fight scene. And I think particularly because Whis tells them no transformations, no ki beams, it's just a big hand-to-hand martial arts fight with Goku and Vegeta. That's a lot of fun. I will always take that. But I agree with you. The movie has such good pacing and momentum. Otherwise, this is the scene that feels a little too long.
Yeah, like, I like the scene, but I think it could have been, like, here's a fun bonus on, like, the Blu-ray, or, like, here's, like, a YouTube video we put up to promote the movie or something. Like, and here's what Goku and Vegeta were doing during the events of Superhero, and you just have, like, 1 minute or something of it in the movie that is just the quick cutaway where you see, oh, this is why they can't be, you know, they're occupied and Whis can't get the message from Bulma. Because obviously you need to address why they're not there. You just don't need to spend a lot of time on it. But to talk about that actual sequence, yeah, I'm totally with you. That I love all the dynamics of it. Getting Beerus in anything is always super fun. You know, Yamada Koichi is just one of the great voice actors in Japan, and it's like his performance of Beerus is amazing. I adore the idea that he's got this dumb little crush on Chilai. That's like very innocent, you know. There's like nothing like untoward about it. It's just I love how it starts. It's just this like that kind of soft filter that you get a POV look of him looking at Chilai, and there's like a soft filter on it, and then it just cuts to that wide shot where he just says, "Hey, you're cute." He just says, "Oh, kawaii," and that's it. And then he just like, and then later she's like, "Oh, I'll go get the ice cream." He's like, "Hey, I'll come help you out." Like, he's like a 13-year-old boy or something with his crush on the girl at school. It's very funny. And it's, you know, she's a Mizuki Nana character. Who wouldn't have a crush on Chilai? But I love Broly's dynamic in this scene. I love that, like, you get intro to this sequence of Goku and Broly, like, just about to star, and then Broly starts getting worked up, and Goku's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, let's back up. Let's just, like, it's a very unique moment for Goku where he's like, let's not fight right now. Let's calm down, okay? Because when you lose your temper, you're gonna blow up the entire fucking planet. And I love the idea that he, you know, it's been a couple of years, and that, like, he and Goku and Broly and Vegeta and all of them have like this sort of friendship that's extended from that kind of that great last scene from the Broly movie where Goku introduces himself as Kakarot, right, and all that. And it feels like really natural that Broly is kind of a part of that group now. And it's one of those things that I hope this is like a sort of nod towards the next Dragon Ball, whatever, if they do another TV show, they do a movie, whatever they're doing, that this will be part of the dynamic. Because it's something we talked about, I know, on our Broly podcast, when we thought that there would be more Dragon Ball sooner, that, like, these are characters that shouldn't just be the characters that were from this one movie and you never saw them again. They're characters like Beerus and Whis that should keep coming back. And it's very satisfying that even if it's only a little bit in the movie, that this feels like clear intent, that those characters are around to like, stay, and they're not just one-offs. And that was, if anything I got from that scene, that was the thing that made me happiest, was getting confirmation that they are not just sort of like abandoning those characters and that they're going to keep them around.
Indeed, and of course with Chilai and Limo too, and Chilai has the thing with Beerus. She also has the thing where she clearly went and robbed Beerus's house.
Yes. while he was sleeping for 4 months or whatever. Yeah.
And is only saved because Beerus thinks she's cute, and probably also doesn't care about material possessions because he's the god of destruction. But that's very funny. And then I love that Limo has like found himself as the chef for Beerus and Whis, and like he loves doing that, and they love having him for that, and it's just like, hey, he found a good role in life, and I love that for Limo. I think he clearly, the older dude, he needed a break. I think this is good for him.
Yeah, but he also, I like that he is like clearly scared shitless of Beerus the entire time.
Yes.
He has fun cooking, he's happy to do it, but he's like I think the only one of them to fully appreciate that, like at any given moment, if Beerus wanted to, he could just disintegrate all of them. Like that whole dynamic. There's all those characters from Broly were so much fun. And it's really cool to just get them more screen time and have them bouncing off of like the other cast from Super.
Yeah. And I think Goku being the one to like calm down Broly in that fight is good. It's a callback to the moment in the Broly movie where Goku tries to like de-escalate and calm Broly down, and he very nearly does it because Goku is good at kind of reading people in that way. And I like that he's kind of still on that path. I like Broly when he's watching Goku and Vegeta fight. He's actually very intent watching the fight and learning. There's just a lot of good little character work. Again, my complaint such with that scene is that it's too much of a good thing. That's not a big problem for a movie. If you're like, this one really great scene went on too long. I can live with that. There are much worse problems for a movie to have,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So back to Piccolo. I love the whole part of the movie that is Piccolo realizing they're going to kidnap Pan. And so he's like, well, hey, why don't I get in on this? And this will make Gohan come out to play. Which is so great because, of course, Piccolo isn't going to let Pan get hurt. And as soon as Pan realizes what's going on, she's totally on board with it. And it's very cute and fun, and it works as intended. It's great.
Yeah, I just love the setup of, like, that they're going to go kidnap Pan. And so here's, like, this big burly soldier, and then Piccolo like sort of like weasels his way into that entourage, but like the whole time say to me like, I cannot wait until this big idiot tries to kidnap Pan and just gets his absolute shit rocked by this little 3-year-old girl. And it's like I was just like saying to him like, yes, like I just want to see this happen. It's the kind of thing you saw all the time in like classic Dragon Ball with people treating little kid Goku like a little kid, and then Goku would just absolutely fuck their shit up. But it's even funnier when it's like a toddler, basically.
In her school uniform, which she's in for the last half of the movie.
Yeah, her adorable little school uniform, and I love that whole scene of like the guy being like, "Hey, Pan, why don't you come?" Like acting like the most conspicuous child kidnapper you've ever seen, and she just punches him in the dick. It's just fucking amazing. And then Piccolo convincing her to like pretend to be kidnapped and putting the little handcuffs on her, but like, you could break out of these with no problem, right? It's like, yeah, I could do that in a cinch. And like that whole process of how excited she is to play along with the kidnapping, and her like, playing for the video and stuff like that they're going to send to Gohan and everything. Like, it's a great, it's a very Dragon Ball sequence. It's the kind of sequence that you really only ever see in Dragon Ball with these kinds of very ridiculous characters we have.
Yes. I love that Piccolo has had such a journey. This is not anywhere near the most extreme thing he's done with a child.
No.
Because you have, like, he did not, he pretended to have Pan be kidnapped, and Pan was fine because they were having fun. He did not drop her off on a mountain for 6 months,
Yes, with only like reluctantly making a little tiny sword for her and some clothes, and that's it. Yeah, no, it's like he's grown a lot as a caretaker.
Indeed. I also love in that scene the teacher who is there, and as soon as Pan punches the guy, Pan turns to her and is like, I don't know him. And she's like, okay, Pan. And then Piccolo comes up, and the teacher knows Piccolo because Piccolo picks up Pan. And so this random green alien dude, the teacher is just like, yeah, this is totally normal, that this green alien dude is a nice guy who comes and picks up my student. I love it.
Well, and Piccolo has that great excuse because he's dressed in like the security guard uniform thing or whatever. Like, he looks like, he's like a fucking SWAT team member. He's like, oh, it's a training exercise, because she's Mr. Satan's granddaughter. So, kidnappers are going to come after her all the time. It's just like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I get it's like so Dragon Ball. It's so purely a Dragon Ball scene. It's great.
It's very good. So we have all of that. when they make the video, and then Piccolo goes with them to deliver it to Gohan, and I love that whole thing because Piccolo is trying to like stay out of the way so Gohan won't recognize him, but Gohan also is like just not into it that much, so Piccolo is surprised by that. But that whole scene is fun, and of course, as soon as Gohan realizes what's going on, he jumps into action, and we get Angry Gohan, and Angry Gohan is fun.
Yes, I mean, as soon as he starts going Super Saiyan outside his house and like creating that massive crater that keeps on getting bigger and bigger
and the house tilts off into the crater.
Yeah,
he's gonna have to fix that.
Yeah, there's a scene during the end credits when the end credits are playing. There's all these like drawings showing like manga panels, basically showing different scenes taking place after the movie. One of them is Videl looking at the house, just like with this like a gape expression of like, what the fuck has happened while I was working. Yeah, it is very fun getting to see Gohan get into action like that, right? It's one of the, like, I think a strong motivator for the plot is I think you're exactly in the same position as Piccolo, that you want to see Gohan get into it again. You know, you want to see him fight. You want to see Gohan sort of realize that he's being a little bit too comfortable, and that he needs to be more, you know, alert and more prepared and all that kind of stuff, and to save his family, to save the Earth, whatever. So when Gohan starts losing his shit and Piccolo's like, yeah, you're sitting there in the audience, he's like, yeah, let's go fuck
Absolutely.
up some robot man.
Indeed. I had a funny moment of anime wires in my brain being crossed watching that scene, because when the house falls off its axis and is like going into the thing, as Japanimation Station listeners will know, we have been watching and reading a shit ton of Full Metal Alchemist, and so the wires in my brain were totally crossed, and I went, oh, someone's gonna have to clap their hands together and fix the house. Then I went, no, that's a different series.
Yeah, wrong one.
They can do a lot in Dragon Ball, they can't do alchemy. Although Piccolo can create clothes out of nothing, so there's that.
Yeah, Piccolo could probably fix it with one of his weird magic beams. Like, him or Boo can just sort of do things sometimes, so I'm sure he can figure it out.
Indeed. There is one shot of Boo in this movie, which is Piccolo, like, thinking about all the heroes on Earth, and he thinks, like, Boo is in sleep mode or something, and we just see Boo is, like, by a pool, like, poolside at Capsule Corp just napping, which is very funny.
I do like that it doesn't even occur to Piccolo to think of, like, Krillin or Tenshinhan or, you know, God help you, Yamcha. Like, the thought doesn't even cross his mind to ask them for help. You know, he thinks about the androids, but it's like, oh, but we're fighting Red Ribbon Army people, so that might not be the best idea. He doesn't even, like, you know, mention a single syllable of a Yamcha in this whole movie.
Well, yeah, sadly we did not get Yamcha in this. It would be nice, but oh well. I'm not sure what he would do. Krillin does get to kick some ass. We'll talk about that later. Krillin, everyone always underestimates Krillin. He's a great fighter. Anyway, so the second half of the movie is basically what happens after this, where Gohan flies off, and then we are in the big Red Ribbon Army base, which we gotta just take a second to talk about, is a really cool set that they constructed in the 3D space of that. It is like this factory that then there's an illusory wall, and you go in and it's a much bigger evil army factory, and that's where the entire climax of the movie takes place, and it's got its own like tram system going around and stuff like that. A little bit of the fight takes place there. All of that is super cool.
Yeah, and it's got this sort of like reflective roof or dome or whatever, like force field, I guess, because you can just kind of move through it. But it's a thing that when Gohan powers all the way up, it like shatters, and so the rain starts coming through it. It's very dramatic staging, because it's like, you know, for the rest of the movie, it's this kind of like perfect sunshine secret base thing, and then Gohan destroys that roof thing and lets like the outside air in.
Mm-hmm. So we get Gohan versus Gamma 1, right?
Yes.
He's fighting the Hiroshi Kamiya. Yeah. And that's it. It's a great fight. It's very well done. It's all in the rain, which is another one of, they're taking full advantage of the CGI thing, because rain is really hard to do in animation by hand, and to make everything look right. And it's a little easier to do in CGI, so it's a big fight in the rain, which I don't think we really don't have a ton of in Dragon Ball elsewhere, because, again, it's kind of a more complicated thing to draw. But it's a very fun sequence, and you have Gohan. I like how there has always been a little bit of ambiguity in the post-Z era, like the Super era roughly, of Gohan's exact power scaling, because in Z he has the whole thing where he becomes Ultra Gohan, or whatever you want to call him, where the Grand Kai like pulls out his latent potential, and that is explicitly stated in Z as being more powerful than Super Saiyan. He did not go Super Saiyan in Battle of Gods in the brief sequence where he fights Beerus. But then in Resurrection F, he does go Super Saiyan and he doesn't go Ultra Gohan. And then they kind of went back and forth with it in Super. Here, it's he can go Super Saiyan, and then when he goes even fuller than that, his hair goes back to black, and he's in the Ultra Gohan mode. I really like that as like a justification of the different Gohan power levels, because I've always loved the sort of Ultra Gohan power-up where it's not a hair color change, it's more of like an affect change, and I think it looks cool.
Yeah, it's always been, I think, one of the most underutilized ideas because it comes in very late in Dragon Ball Z, and it's, you know, it's one of like the core issues with the Buu saga is that they do all this setup with Gohan, and then it's like you get very little payoff with your Ultimate Gohan, Potential Unleashed Gohan, the thousands of different, you know, pick your Wikipedia entry and your Dragon Ball wiki entry of like how you want to describe the form. But yeah, I think it has always been, or it was for a long time, like a debate of, is this a transformation that he activates, or is this just what he is all the time? And I feel like we very much settled on no, this is like a transformation that is beyond Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2. Probably is more powerful than if he did, like, I imagine Gohan doesn't need Super Saiyan 3 because this seems like Dragon Ball Z, the Buu arc would imply that it is more powerful than equivalent Super 3 type form. But yeah, like I really have always loved his ultimate form. I like its usage here. It is a thing that in the Super, like the Tournament of Power stuff, in the build up to that, there's like a whole episode of him like kind of like re-getting some of his mojo back and re-attaining that form because he had let it kind of lapse for so long. Which this movie almost feels like taking that sort of idea, that episode from Super, because that's a Piccolo Gohan episode, and with Goku is also involved, and that's like blowing that up into its whole own movie instead to just focus like really in on that kind of story and that idea. But yeah, I love Gohan's fight here. I love his design. I like getting him back in the like classic Piccolo outfit. I really like him in the Piccolo outfit with like the scraggly hair before he's transformed, and he's got like the cape on and everything.
Yes.
And it looks like a grown-up version of Gohan from the Cell games. All of Gohan's various looks in this movie are very nice.
They also do something that I find just, again, riotously funny, is Gohan has glasses as an adult in Dragon Ball Super. And I think it has always been a question for me of what are the glasses for? Because he is a Saiyan with, like, superpowers, and, like, does he have actual eyesight issues? Or are they there to make him look smart? And we learn in this movie, he does have fairly severe eyesight issues, but when he transforms, they go away. That is fucking hilarious. It is perfectly Toriyama. I love it so much. I love the idea that when he is a Super Saiyan, he's fine, his eyes are good, and then he powers back down, and oh no, I'm Velma from Scooby-Doo, I need my glasses. That is amazing. Yeah,
it is very funny the moment after the first like round of fighting is done. He's like, has anyone seen my glasses? They came off while I was fighting. Yeah, it's very good.
As someone who wears glasses and has since before I started reading Dragon Ball, I appreciate that one of our heroes is a proud glasses wearer. Even Saiyans have eye issues, I guess, is the lesson of the story.
Of course, but Super Saiyans don't, for
Super
whatever
Saiyans
reason.
Don't.
It's just one of the, I guess, you know, their pupil color changes. This probably has to do something like that. It makes sense.
Yeah. So you have Gohan versus Gamma 1, you have Piccolo doing a second round with Gamma 2 and kind of bringing Gamma 2 around to their side. I forget the exact chain of events that leads to the activation of Cell Max, but basically Gohan does get the better of Gamma 1 and Gamma 2 realizes what's going on, right?
Well, they basically fight to a standstill, more or less,
right.
because Gamma 1 and Gamma 2, since they're androids, they run on like a power source or whatever, so they don't get fatigued, and it's just like they're fighting more or less to a standstill. Piccolo activates his crazy orange Piccolo form, which is, as far as I can tell, is just officially called Orange Piccolo. That's what he says in the movie. That seems to be the name of the form. And like it is using that time to try to convince Gamma 2, and then the stuff with Pan happens, right? And
right.
Carmine
tries to kill Pan,
yeah, and that's what convinces Gamma 2 finally be like, okay, yeah, no, I know who the bad guy is here, and that's how you shift into the Cell Max phase of the plot.
Yes. So anyway, I do like all of that. I think the fights here are fantastic. You know, they're not as spectacular as in Broly, But they shouldn't be. That's not the kind of movie this is either, right? If you did the weird thing that Broly did where like they break into a fourth dimension or something, that'd be weird for this movie, you know? So this is a little more grounded, but I love the back and forth that you start with Gohan a little more powerful. Gamma 1 powers up and shows what he can do. That's when Gohan goes ultimate. Piccolo, there's a back and forth until he goes to what we then call Orange Piccolo, which is fun. All of that is good. Do you want to talk about Orange Piccolo as a brand new power-up? And it has been a joke in the Dragon Ball community for decades now. What would a Super Namekian be? I know the term Super Namekian shows up in different places, but like the Super Saiyan version of a Namekian. And now we have a true Namekian transformation, and it's goofy, and I love it.
It's very Toriyama. It's very, he gets... Because he does have, like, a slight color change. The first time he, like, after Shinron powers him up, like, Piccolo's sort of look is a little bit yellowy-er. And I thought, oh, that's his transformation in the movie, because you saw it in like a clip from the trailer. And so I was like, oh, like I guess that's like his transformation. Like that's fine. And then but then later in the movie, he gets like he's being beaten by Gamma 2. He gets like knocked down that crater or whatever. He has the flash to the dragon saying, "Oh, I threw in a little something extra for you, just like a little extra spice." And then Piccolo transforms into like, what if Piccolo was played by Arnold Schwarzenegger with like orange skin? Basically, it's fucking. I'm like way into it. I love the like big crazy orange Piccolo. Particularly, I think where I really love the form is more at the end of the movie when he grows gigantic with it.
Yes,
because I feel like, to me, I feel like the form is almost retroactively was like designed backwards. Like it feels like they knew they wanted Piccolo to use his like grow giant power from the end of original Dragon Ball. And they created a design that works really well with that idea, because it looks fairly goofy when he's more or less normal Piccolo sized. He's just bulked up more. But when he's like a giant kaiju monster, then it looks fucking great.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with that. The entire fact that I just about stood up and cheered in the theater when someone mentioned, like, to Piccolo, like, hey, didn't you grow giant once at the Tenkaichi Budokai? And Piccolo's like, oh, right, I can do that. And then he does it, because if you know me, that's my favorite Dragon Ball fight. That might be my favorite single volume of the manga, is volume 16, which is that part of the tournament. I love Piccolo, like, evil shit-eating grin, Piccolo Jr. growing giant and fighting Goku. It's all so good, and decades later, we've brought it back, goddammit, and it's glorious.
Yes, it's great, and now he's like this crazy giant orange version of himself. And I do love that Piccolo gets to name his own form. Like, Gohan runs up to him afterwards, is like, man, what the hell was that, Piccolo? Like, you gotta name it. Like, we've got Super Saiyan. What's your thing? Is like, I think I'll call it Orange Piccolo. And then Gohan's like, Orange Piccolo, okay.
It's what Piccolo would name it. It feels very in character.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, I totally understand this is not... The transformations in the Dragon Ball Super era are not everyone's cup of tea. But what I like about them, and I know this is the thing that annoys some people, is I love that Toriyama is embracing all the colors of the rainbow. Yes. We had red Super Saiyan God, we have blue, it's literally Super Saiyan Blue, which is in the video games called Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan, SSGSS, but I like Super Saiyan Blue because it's not as annoying to say. Just all the transformations have been sort of color-based, and I think that's fun, and I actually think it's very intentional, because the transformations in the manga were explicitly premised on the fact that it was a black and white manga. Mm-hmm. So how do you show a color change? Well, you make his hair white, right? And Toriyama has made the joke about how he did it so that then his assistant wouldn't have to do all the shading on the hair. But it's also like, if you're going to do a transformation like that, you have to do it in a way that works in black and white. I like that we're in a pure anime-only era of the show, so the transformations rely on color more. I think that's cool, and I think we get that here as well.
Yeah, and I enjoy it. It's like they're obviously the like transformations outside of Ultra Instinct in the Tournament of Power, which is fucking amazing. And is more like a classic Dragon Ball style transformation. This era, like the transformations are less about like the Super Saiyan. It's a massive culmination of like this huge, massive story arc and all this build up, and it's more there for fun. But I like it. I like that they're like willing to sort of just like take the piss out of it a little bit and just have fun with the transformations and just do what you want with it, rather than trying to constantly replicate what like Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2 were. It's a lot more like how Super Saiyan 3 was integrated, which was more like half as a story beat and half kind of feeling like a joke.
Right. And also, I think a lot of the transformations have been used well within the aesthetics of the works themselves. Like, Super Saiyan Blue, I think looks good in Resurrection F, looks phenomenal in Broly.
Yes.
Just is really well done there and feels like... thank God for that flash of color because they use it so well. And then I think this movie makes really good use of the orange Piccolo. As you say, I think especially when he's in beast mode, he's all big and fighting Cell Max. All of that's great, and it just looks really good and is fun. But the whole activation of Cell Max is that sequence in the underground lab where Magenta is trying to set him off. Hedo fights Magenta. Magenta seemingly kills Hedo with the gun. It was very funny. The people sitting behind me when Hedo got shot were like, "Oh, I liked him," and I was like, "He's definitely not dead." Remember what he said about his skin? His skin is slightly harder than normal.
Yeah, so he has modified his skin to be able to withstand impacts of a certain degree.
Yes. So he lives. He totally kills Magenta, cold-blooded killer with his cool bee dude. It's very much Chekhov's gun. He displays that the bee can kill at the beginning of the movie, and at the end of the movie he kills Magenta with it, but it's too late, and Cell Max does get out. Cell Max is an interesting idea. I was actually surprised in the credits to see that it is Norio Wakamoto credited as Cell Max, even though all he's doing is yelling, and it kind of could have been anyone.
It couldn't have been. No, it has to be. That was the thing where I was like a little... I don't know about the Cell Max thing when it started happening, and then I heard Norio Wakamoto yelling. I'm like, oh, I'm for this now. Like, I'm 100% for this. Like, it's the fact that they got him in there just to yell, and he is the most recognizable voice actor. He is like the Japanese version of Christopher Walken. Nobody sounds like Norio Wakamoto. Like, his affectations in his speech are so distinctive. That even him just doing non-vocal yells and growls is like, yeah, that's him. That's 100% him, and I was fucking very happy to hear it.
Absolutely.
It's 100% the thing that sold me on the entire concept was just that it is him yelling the entire time. He doesn't even have a single line of actual dialogue.
Yeah. I think Cell Max is not the best thing in the movie or the best villain ever or anything. The entire conceit is to have a big, crazy villain for everyone to have to team up and fight. And I think it works 100% on that level. I think it's not the most imaginative thing in this or any other Dragon Ball movie, but I think it allows for everything else that happens. And it is fun to hear Norio Wakamoto screaming for, 30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, because I think it's just like the alternative is that it's just a nondescript, generic, giant monster or robot or something that they all fight. They just need like a big giant enemy threat. And so if it's just going to be a generic thing otherwise, you might as well just like connect it to something somehow. And so that's for me like the Cell Max thing. It's very kind of like utilitarian or whatever and how it is utilized, but it works for me in that way, that I think it's better than just ginning up some random monster design that you're never going to use again.
And there's so many great moments during this last stretch of the movie. I love Bulma coming and having brought Krillin and number 18 because Krillin is part of the police force, so he's got to do his job.
He's got a lot of paperwork out of him.
Oh boy, poor police officer Krillin. But I love that you have that. I love the moment that Krillin. Everyone always underestimates Krillin. I think Krillin underestimates himself. He totally saves the day when he comes in and does the Kienzan and then the Taiyo-Ken, because Krillin is not as strong as a lot of other Dragon Ball characters. He is emphatically a better fighter than some of them. Goten and Trunks, definitely stronger than Krillin. They've been stronger than Krillin since they probably were toddlers. But Krillin is a smarter fighter than them because we see Goten and Trunks don't do anything good on purpose in this movie, which is a great joke because they fuck up the fusion and then they're thrown around like a volleyball. Meanwhile, Krillin, he gets 2 great attacks off.
Yeah, no, it is a good use of Krillin. I like, he's like Piccolo in that way, that it's like he's the crafty one because he has to be. Yes. And I like how they use Krillin. I love Goten and Trunks being completely useless. And I like the joke of like Gotenks being the volleyball this time because like the volleyball thing is one of his like big moves from the Buu arc. So him getting turned into the volleyball is fun.
Yes, we also just have to stop and say I really like Goten and Trunks' in-between design. It's not crazy far off from where they are at the end of Z, but it's even more kind of like gangly and awkward teenagers. I particularly love Trunks' outfit, and his general like kind of like bad boy teenage vibe is very funny to me. And I also like the detail that they just haven't fused in a while, and so they're like rusty at it, and they fuck it up, and it's very funny.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing that, if they do more Dragon Ball stuff like a TV show, I would be very happy to see more of these versions of the characters, because that is like one of the things about Super that eventually like felt like a little dry, was that like it was frustrating that Goten and Trunks were like stuck in their Z versions for so long. That's really satisfying to finally be able to like move those characters up a bit, and I think it just opens up some opportunities to do new things with them.
We mentioned Masuko Nozawa there, but you also get a couple lines from Takeshi Kusao, who I always love the different ages he has to play Trunks at. His couple of lines here as angsty teenage Trunks was very funny to me.
Yes. I'm sure he's like grateful that they've aged up Trunks a little bit so that he doesn't have to try to play like an 8-year-old boy. It's always felt like it was like, man, you got to be killing yourself trying to do this voice, man.
Yes. But of course, the main attraction of this final fight is all of the Piccolo and Gohan stuff. And we do, in the midst of Piccolo holding off Cell Max in his Gigantamax form, we do have Gohan do a big transformation that is a clear callback, obviously, to the end of the Cell games. It even does a visual reference to it with the like red beam that kind of shoots through his head extra diegetically, which is there in the manga, it's there in the anime. But it's a different kind of moment, of course, here. And it comes after Gamma 2's big sacrifice, which is a spectacular sequence. Yeah. That scene is so... Maybe we can come back and talk about that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting moment, because I think I was like sitting there wondering, like, what are you going to do with Gohan? Like, are you going to give him a new transformation? Are you going to, like, clearly, like, the movie is building up to Gohan having to be the one who saves the day. I think it's why, like, when Gamma 2 starts doing his thing, you can tell that, well, this is not going to be able to finish it, because Gohan clearly is the character who has to win at the end. Partially because it's a giant cell monster, but also because like Piccolo has been setting up this idea that you've had said a couple times over the course of the movie that like if he wants to or when he needs to be, Gohan is the most powerful person on Earth. And so I like the idea of, okay, we have this like unique transformation, which when I looked it up, apparently it is officially called Gohan Beast. It is literally his beast mode. That is like a mix between, I think, the aesthetic of Ultra Instinct and the aesthetic of his classic Super Saiyan 2 Cell games look. Which the Super Saiyan 2 Cell games Gohan has always been my favorite Super Saiyan design. I think it has always like captured the most the like sort of like ferocity of that whole like the concept of Super Saiyan. With like the giant spiky golden hair, and like Super Saiyan 2 Gohan has always been the one that stood out to me as like the most interesting design. And this is just like a on crack version of that, basically.
Basically that. And then, of course, they do about 20 minutes before this actually happens in the movie. I was thinking to myself, God, I hope he does a Makanko Sapo. Like,
Me
I just
too.
realized, like, that's how this movie needs to end. And we get it. It's glorious. He's in this new beast mode. He's got the cool gray hair, and he puts the fingers to his head. And I was like, God, take me now. I'm happy. Yeah. I've lived a good life. Gohan is going to do the Makanko Sapo. And Masako Nozawa says that line, the Makanko Sapo, like she's been waiting 30 years to do it. It's like, I've said most of the Dragon Ball things. I haven't gotten to say this one. I'm gonna fucking make it count. And it's legitimately one of her best, like, power line readings like that. Like a Kamehameha or something. That Makanko Sapo just comes from the core of her being. He shoots it out, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's so satisfying because I have the exact same reaction. I think the movie is very good at, like, planting the seeds to set you up for something like that. It's particularly like the thing for me, the moment that sensed it, that's like, oh, they're going to go for something like that. I mean, the whole scenario of like that it's like this little spot on his head or whatever that they have to hit and break, like, is very much feels like it's setting that up. But then Piccolo says to Gohan, I'm going to hold him down. You hit him with a Kamehameha or something, is what he says. And as soon as like you open up the door for something other than a Kamehameha, I'm like, okay, here we go. Oh fucking shit. Because the Makanko Sapo is one of those moves that, like a lot of Dragon Ball moves in the like main stuff, is only ever used once. Piccolo only ever uses the Makan Kosappo at the end of the Raditz story, and he uses it to kill Raditz and to kill Goku. And it never comes up again. It's never used again. Obviously, you know, it'll happen in the movies. It's his move in all of the games. Like, we're very familiar with the Makan Kosappo, and if you're a Dragon Ball fan, it's in everything all the time. But in the actual series, it only ever has been used one time. It pops up in Super. But I mean,
it does in the Universe 6 versus Universe 7 arc. Is when he brings it back, and it was exciting because he hadn't done it in the canon before then.
Yes, but in terms of like the main original stuff in like Z, it's a lot like Vegeta, where Vegeta has only ever used the move one time. He only ever used the Gallic Gun once. That he used the Big Bang attack once, and he used the Final Flash once, and that's it.
Yes.
And so it's one of those weird quirks of Dragon Ball as a franchise is that outside of stuff like the Kamehameha and the Spirit Bomb, most of those special moves only pop up the one time that they're used. So it is very satisfying to see it get used here for such a like powerful narrative moment of this bond between Gohan and Piccolo, and it's particularly the moment after it all happens, because the whole thing is spectacular. Yes. It's amazing. All the shit they do with the giant energy effects and the like giant death bomb that Cell Max is making that expands in these like weird giant like spurts, like all that shit is incredible. The coloring, like they went haywire with all that shit, and it's great. But the thing that sells it the most is afterwards, Gohan telling Piccolo, the Piccolo coming up to Gohan being like, was that a Makan Kosappo? And Gohan being like, yeah, I used to do it. I used to practice it in secret. And he says, good job. And it's like, oh.
I got teary-eyed.
Yeah,
I genuinely, it's one of the only times Dragon Ball has gotten tears out of me. I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, it's an amazing moment of just like, and that's one of those things where like the bond between Piccolo and Gohan is so strong. But again, it's that thing where it's like, it's so nuanced in this different way. It's not the kind of interaction that Piccolo would have had with Gohan when he was a kid, and he used if he had used the Special Beam Cannon / Makan Kosappo in the Cell Games fight, that wouldn't have been the conversation they had. But there's something about like how honest Gohan is about it in like a slightly sheepish way, but he's so upfront about it that there's a maturity to that interaction between these two characters that shows you how much they have grown. And still how close their relationship is. That it like that hit me really hard because it's just it is the perfect Gohan Piccolo moment for this movie.
That's the thing that I think, best Dragon Ball movie, one of the best whatever you want to say. What this movie does special that no other Dragon Ball movie does is that kind of thing.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And that is it's a unique thing to have in the modern Dragon Ball era, done beautifully, beautifully well, and I love it to death. I do love all the stuff with the androids here as well. We talked about Gamma 2's big sacrifice scene. That is, as you noted, Mamoru Miyano is a big Dragon Ball fan. He is yelling his heart out there for that big final, and I think that is one of the most impressive pieces of animation in the movie, is his big using all his power and like punching down to try to break into Cell, and he winds up punching his arm off instead. But it is still a necessary sacrifice. I think the moment, we mentioned it earlier, where Piccolo talks to Dr. Hedo and says, hey, we wouldn't have been able to do this without you. He was a superhero. That's a beautiful moment. I love the whole sense that, like, Gamma 2 mattered and people are sad. And because it's not immediately reversed with the Dragon Balls, you actually kind of feel the loss there in the moment. Mm-hmm. It's all just really beautifully done.
Yeah, the whole ending of this movie is phenomenal. Because it's that thing of where, like, the action part of it is very well executed, but what's really important is all the stuff that happens afterwards. And to me, that's like the stuff that stands out the most. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of the stuff we talked about at the beginning of this conversation is stuff that happens here at the end of this movie with like the pan shots and with not the pan shots in terms of like a pan shot in terms of a shot that has panned the character in it. Just make that very clear, because it is the panning shot. But the shots with Pan's POV, the stuff with Gamma 2, the Piccolo saying like he was a superhero, and then the Makan Kosappo lines, like that is like what this movie is about, is getting all of those moments and having them feel totally earned, and all of the crazy action that happened for the 30 minutes prior to that is all just to give those moments the weight that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very have your cake and eat it too, in that you get great action. It really is.
Yeah.
It's only if it's lesser in comparison to anything, it's only lesser in comparison to Broly, and it's okay to be lesser than that, right?
Yes,
and again,
I mean, it's definitely the second best action in any Dragon Ball movie. Like, there's kind of no
Yeah.
question to me on that front.
Yeah. So, and again, it's going for something different than Broly. I'm glad it's different, and I think it's intentionally so. But then, again, have your cake and eat it too. You get that, but then the character stuff at the end and the story is just so superior and so beautifully well done and satisfying. If I have any one little nagging complaint at the end here, and it's small, I think the whole joke that I love that Bulma agrees to take Dr. Hedo and Gamma 1 to Capsule Corps and they'll work with her. I think bringing back the joke about her and the skincare stuff feels like going to that well one too many times, because that's
Sure.
the joke with her and Broly. It's the joke with the and I love that with the Dragon Balls, because again, it's both sides of Bulma. It's that she's very smart and she's also kind of vain. And then here, I think it's just a trip maybe one too many times to the kind of vain Bulma well, because Bulma is in this a lot and she's great, and the new Bulma voice actress Aya Hisakawa is very good. But I feel like there could have been a slightly different beat there, but that's more of a nitpick than anything.
Sure, I'm with you on that. That they go to that joke one too many times, but it's not a big deal at the end of the movie.
No, whatever else. I like the idea that they will be there at Capsule Corps, because
Yes.
that is a place for them to come back into the story, and I think fun stuff can happen there. I like the kind of like Dr. Hedo sort of humbled at the end of the movie, where they say like, you were tricked, and he says, I was, but I also knew what was going on. I think that's a sweet little moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of that is good. And then Pan learns to fly, and she flies around and hugs her dad, and we go to credits, and everyone's happy, and it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. And then did you see the post-credit scene?
I absolutely saw the post-credits scene, and that is easily the best post-credits.
The happiest ending Dragon Ball has ever had. Vegeta won.
Vegeta won. And the best post-credits scene in any superhero movie.
Yes.
That's for damn sure. Yes, Vegeta wins. I love that Broly is like in tears having watched the fight. No one else cares. And then Whis realizes he didn't answer the phone. And Bulma's like, we fixed it. And it's a good ending.
Yeah, I love the moment at the end where fucking Vegeta and Goku are just like barely standing on their feet. They like very lightly punch one another. Goku falls down first and just goes, I lost. And then Vegeta's like, I won! Finally, I won! He collapses. That is so funny to me. It's a very good little post-credits scene. That is a lot better than, they don't use it as like and here's a character for the Dragon Ball Super manga has appeared out of a portal and says a line of dialogue, and then you smash into another version of the credits or whatever. It's just a very fun little character beat that you get to end the movie on. I liked it.
Ryo Horikawa, very funny there. The entire idea that Vegeta's first official victory over Goku happens in a post-credits scene is the perfect piece of Toriyama writing. Yeah, of course that's how it happens, right?
Yeah, and because I didn't know that there was going to be a post-credits scene. I just knew in my heart of hearts, it's like they must, because it's a superhero movie. They gotta have done it, right? They must have put a fucking post-credits scene in this thing. And I was very satisfied to see that I was right.
Yes, it's wonderful. It's a great little ending. Speaking of the credits and the music we get there, I love the score to this movie.
Yes.
It's Naoki Sato, who is a new composer to Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball has had several composers over the years. It was, I'm forgetting his name, but the guy who did From Battle of Gods through all of Super. And I think that music was kind of up and down. Some of it was bad, some of it was good. The Broly score was very good.
Yeah.
This is a new composer, though, and I think Naoki Sato hit this out of the park. Very clearly, the mandate or the idea was to do a big kind of like Hollywood-style superhero movie score, and it's better than most Hollywood superhero movie scores. There is not a Marvel movie with a score as effective as this movie. I will firmly say that, and I believe it 100%. This movie has I was listening to the soundtrack today walking my dog, and I loved it. Just the walk went by in no time. I'm loving the music. And I walked out of the theater humming the melodies, and it's a big, boisterous superhero movie score. It's not exactly the kind of music I would want in all Dragon Ball stuff, because it doesn't have some of the fun, silly side. It doesn't do some of the big horns that I associate with Shunsuke Kikuchi and the classic Dragon Ball music. But for this movie, perfect. and totally outdoes Hollywood because Hollywood music is mostly bad now. This is great.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And I just found the score very funny in that sense of like how good it was at evoking your classic superhero thing. It felt like a really good version of that episode of Doctor Who, The Return of Dr. Mysterio, that is like a decent episode of Doctor Who, but is like the superhero parody thing. And that is like a whatever, like the score of that episode like is going for that, but on a TV budget, they can't really fully do that parody. But it reminded me of this like it's like a superhero movie turned up to 11 in terms of the score. Yes. Like it is making a joke out of how much of a superhero thing it is. And it really like sort of puts a lampshade on that joke at the beginning, because I love that most of the opening scene of this movie has no music to it. And then Carmine puts the like a thing, or like he turns on the radio or whatever it is, when the end of like when Magenta is wrapping up his deal, to give this like dramatic music to really like sort of get Hedo into it. So he puts on this big superhero music theme that starts like pumping up at the end of that like kind of prologue. And it's just like a way of sort of like introing you into what the music is doing, because I think the music is most times in this movie in on exactly that joke, and it's really great.
Yes. I loved that joke. I love they even do a nice big close-up of the radio that like has all the different colors as he turns it up all the way. This movie is just dripping with fun little details like that. It really feels like a Dragon Ball movie where everyone involved had a lot of fun. I think I would bet anything that this was probably Toriyama's favorite of the new movies to write. It just feels like he's having a ball with this one, because this is also more kind of, I think, in the like sense of stakes that I think he's a little more comfortable with, especially these days, than maybe the world-shattering stuff, and just all of that. And I think everyone on down, from the director Kodama to the music to everything, it's just such a joy. It feels like a treat for everyone to get to make, and then for all of us to get to watch.
Yeah, and it's one I'm very, very eager to rewatch for some of those like background details, because there's definitely a lot of shots or sequences I want to pause or play multiple times to sort of like see all the details in the background. Like one thing I love is on Magenta's desk in his office, he has a picture of Commander Red and General Violet, who I guess is implied to be his mom, right? Which is how you get Magenta, which I thought was very funny.
I didn't notice that. That's great.
Yes, yeah. It's very briefly in one shot, and I saw General Violet. I'm like, oh yeah. I mean, there's nothing in Dragon Ball that implies that those two hooked up, but it makes sense that like that's how this character gets his name, and that's where that comes from. And then another moment I like of like this has got to be the most like deep Dragon Ball lore in any of these movies is when they're doing all the Hedo stuff. There's like a cork board that they show that has like Dr. Gero. And it's got Android 21 from Dragon Ball FighterZ, because the story in that game is that Android 21 was Gero's wife that then got turned into an android, and their kid is Android 16, or is the person that Android 16 was based on. And that I guess they had another kid, because there's like, it's almost like fucking Rise of the Skywalker in a funny way of the like, well, we can't have it be Dr. Gero's son because that doesn't make sense. So they have to have had this like kid that we don't really give a shit about, that we're not going to show, but that kid's kid is this character. And so like on that corkboard, you see Android 21 from Dragon Ball FighterZ, you see Android 16, and then there's just another person that's just like a blank space with no picture in it. And it's like, oh, and that person married someone else and then they died, but then they had their kid, that was Dr. Hedo, and that's the character you care about. There's something about that scene that I find very funny, that they wrap in all this like lore from the game. That was stuff that I'm pretty sure Toriyama was like consulted on or whatever, because I know he did the Android 21 design and stuff. So it's not just a thing that like Arc System Works made up on their own. But it just kind of integrates that, but then it also just like, yeah, and then some stuff happened, and then now here's our character. I think it's a very funny piece of very Dragon Ball-esque exposition.
Yes, it was very funny. When that played in the theater, there were people behind me who, when they saw Android 21, went, oh, that's from the game. Yeah. And I just love that, like, the game is so popular, you can be in the movie theater and people will notice it. I definitely wanted to go slow down and see that. The whole family tree was very funny to me. Because in my head, before we did that, I was also going, well, wait, is Gero his first or last name? Because Hedo is a different name, but he's his grandson. I guess there was a family, and then they show the family tree, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's how it happened. So there you go. Although, what is a first and last name in Dragon Ball is weird because the Son family is the only family we know of with a family name. So it's very
true.
funny.
Well, I mean, the thing we know is that, legally you have to have a pun based on the same kinds of puns as your other family members. I think that's the only naming rule that's very consistent in the world of Dragon Ball.
It must be, it's a holy, like, divine rule because it applies to space people also.
Yes.
Like Frieza and his entire family.
That'll be like
Cooler
the prologue.
and King Cold.
The prologue of the next movie will be Zeno, deciding that, like, it's like 5 billion years ago, like at the dawn of the universe. Zeno's like, it would be very fun. What if everyone had pun names? It's like, let me like write that into the fabric of space time. And then someone will have like a name that they hate, and they'll try to destroy the universe in order to get their like name changed. And that's going to be the plot of the next movie.
Yes. I think we talked about this at the end of Broly, and then nothing came out of it, but we might as well say it again. What do you want to see from Dragon Ball going forward after this? This movie is not doing the same kinds of numbers as Broly. It looks like kind of everywhere it's this in America it opened bigger than Broly, but it also was on twice as many screens. In Japan, it did about half the box office of Broly, which is still really good. That still, I think, makes it the second highest grossing Dragon Ball movie. It's made 50 million worldwide so far. That's definitely, more than enough to make a profit, and it'll probably make more once you add in America and other territories. So definitely, Dragon Ball still successful. I think, what I would honestly love to see is another TV thing, but I would love if Toei could shift away from the week-to-week thing and do actual, like, cores of Dragon Ball.
Yes, yeah.
Like, do a single 13-episode season and, like, pick a set of characters and do that. And then maybe the year after that, pick another set of characters. I think that would be a very fun way to move forward and have more kind of concentrated arcs. But I would love to see more in whatever form we get it.
Yeah, I'm with you that I would be down for. I think I would go for like a 2-core structure. Because I think like Dragon Ball, I think it would be hard to restrain yourself to only doing a 12 or 13 episode chunk. But yeah, something like move to that kind of slightly more modern, like My Hero Academia and stuff like that. Has very much been on that sort of structure of once a year or so we put out a 2-core chunk. And you can do that at a very high level of quality, and you can structure it that way. I have not followed. I know that the Dragon Ball Super manga has been ongoing. I have not followed any of that stuff at all, so I don't know if that would be stuff that they should do that, or they should just do their own thing. But yeah, I would really want to see another TV show that follows off of after the end of this movie. With the main thing being, I want to see. Well, now I want to see Hedo and Gamma 1, at least. If not, maybe also you can find a way to get Gamma 2 back. Or make a Gamma 3 that is also voiced by Miyano Mamoru. That would also sad. I just want his character not to be dead, because he's a nice... He seems like a really nice guy, and it's like, hey, I would be happy if he got to continue to be in Dragon Ball. But I really want to follow up more with the Broly cast of characters, and I want to revisit some of the characters from Super, like Caulifla and Kale. Like, I want to, like, revisit some of those characters and do more stuff with them. I think the thing I said at the end of the Broly movie podcast we did, if I remember correctly, was I would like to see a story that is our Saiyans going to the Universe 6 Saiyan, like, planet and doing stuff with them. And there being something that they need to go help them with, and take Broly with you. And maybe you can take Gamma with you also, or whatever. Like, that would be a story I'd be very interested in seeing, just to get, like, all of these characters together and do stuff with all of them, because that's what I want to see.
Yeah, I think I would like to see Dragon Ball back on TV in some form. I think Super, I think, got into a very good groove, but the weekly, every single week of the year thing definitely hurt it in the beginning and at various points throughout. And I think, in general, I would like to see all of Toei's shows do this, because as good as the Wano arc of One Piece is, think of what it could be if they only did 26 episodes a year, like, Jesus. And so in general, I'd love to see maybe Toei... they've adapted to the times in some ways. Their production flow is much better than it was even 5 years ago. So hopefully they have room to build this in. But, I will take Dragon Ball whenever and wherever we get it, and I am excited to see what comes next.
Yeah. I would love a TV show, and then every once in a while do another movie. Like, I've been loving these movies, and it is, like, awesome to see how, like, receptive... like the broader public is to anime movies these days, that you can just open Dragon Ball over here as wide as any movie, and it's making really good money at the box office and people are happy and excited about it, and going and seeing the movie. That's like over here, it feels like the market here for Dragon Ball is still so alive, and so I think like eager for new content. And I'm hoping that the people at Crunchyroll now, because this is the first Dragon Ball thing that does not have the Funimation logo on it, because Funimation no longer exists properly as an entity in the West, because it's now owned by Crunchyroll. But it feels like they have done such a good job at really finding that space over here and cultivating and capitalizing on the market that exists for Dragon Ball in America, and that like each movie has opened wider and wider and had more and more options. Now we can watch the Japanese dub with English subtitles in theaters. So it just feels like the market over here is so eager. I know in Japan they want more, that I just hope that in whatever form we get, even if it's not a TV show and it's just more movies, that we get more Dragon Ball at a nice pace.
I think I've told the story before of I went to the first ever theatrical screening of Dragon Ball in America. Was their one night screening through, I think, an early version of like Fathom Events or something of Dragon Ball. It was when movie 12, Fusion Reborn, came out over here. And for one night, they showed Fusion Reborn and The Return of Cooler. I don't know why it was those two. It was movies 12 and 6. And it was a terrible screening. It was literally just the DVDs projected it was at a United Artists Theater we were in California on vacation, so that's where I saw it, but I remember it vividly. I got to see Dragon Ball on the big screen. It was cool. I remember, Battle of Gods, played for one night, was the same thing, was a Fathom Events. Battle of God, that screening, that was at the Belmar Theater back in Colorado, Sean.
Right, yeah.
And that screening, it was for one night only, and it was so sold out that they oversold the theater, and there were people sitting and standing in the aisles. I will never forget that. There was such clear enthusiasm, like, oh my god, they biffed it not doing a big theatrical release for this movie, because people were so hungry for it. And then Resurrection F had a couple of nights you could go see it, and that was cool. Broly had a big rollout, but it was still only in English. And now I got to see this at my art house indie theater film scene here in Iowa. That is my favorite movie theater to go to. I love it. Great sound and picture and everything. And they had it, and I could go in English. I could go in Japanese. We got to do a podcast like this, finally talking about the actual Japanese version from the go, not having to dance around that. God, that is, as someone who has followed this for most of my life now, it's actively surreal that this happened. And of course, it's not the only one. We've got, I think Kimetsu opened at number 1, Jujutsu Kaisen 0 did, this did, anime becoming bigger and bigger at the US box office. And I love that Crunchyroll releasing has this whole thing wrapped up. One Piece Film Red will be coming out soon here, and we'll get the same thing. And it's all great.
Yeah, it's just like there's no reason not to go wide with it. The audience is here. And yeah, like the only one of, like the first Dragon Ball movie I saw in theaters was Broly, because like there was no, because I'm not, as enthusiastic about going and seeing things in the theaters as you are. So it's like, I'm not going to try to get the like one movie screening that you can get that's a movie theater that you have to drive like fucking an hour to go get to or anything like that. Like it's a bit much for me for that stuff. And it's like, and even with Broly, I had to go to a movie theater, not like crazy far away, but like outside of the immediate area to get to the movie theater that was playing Broly. Whereas like with this movie, like any movie theater in my general area, I mean, I just went to the movie theater I normally go to, which is just a Cinemark one that is near where I live, here in Texas. But I could have gone to fucking anything. Like when I was looking up tickets, it was on like any movie theater. Like I didn't have to look up this movie to try to find special screenings. I just had to look up this movie like I do any other movie. And I've never done that with like an anime thing. Like even stuff that opened wider than normal stuff like Mugen Train, you still kind of had to go a little bit out of your way to sort of like find some of that info, because it wasn't just like on the front page, hey, here it is, it's the anime movie. You go to fandango.com and like the first thing that pops up is Dragon Ball Super Superhero, and that's awesome.
Yep. It's been a cool journey. I hope it continues. We love Dragon Ball. We love the people who make it. I'm so happy we got this movie. Absolutely great. One note on the future with Japanimation Station. Yes. Next time we talk, we will be doing Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, but Sean and I have decided it's a long series. We also want to tie in our thoughts on the manga. which we kind of have to talk about at the same time because they're telling the same story.
Yeah.
So we are splitting Brotherhood into 2 episodes, and coincidentally, the best place to split it is just right down the middle. We are doing episodes 1 through 32 for part 1, and then we will do episodes 33 through 64 for part 2. That split I chose because the end of episode 32, not a big spoiler, but that is where one arc is kind of clearly over, and it's where Ed and Al head off to the north, and the whole northern arc starts. And so that'll be the rough split between those two. I think that will make for a much more comfortable conversation for everyone. And so maybe next week, maybe in a couple weeks, but when we fully have time for it, that will be the next episode of Japanimation Station.
Yes, which I'm very excited for. I think this is a good choice because also, if people didn't know, I'm a high school teacher, and so the semester started up. This week was my first full week with teaching students in classroom, because the week before that was a half week. So scheduling might be slightly inconsistent. We'll try to get these out on a timely manner, but if there's like occasionally a week delay, that might happen just because the beginning of the semester is very, very busy, particularly when it is a state I've never taught in before, at a school I've never taught at before. So it's like having to learn all that new stuff. So hopefully there aren't many delays, but there might be. And if there are, that would be the reason why.
As a teacher, Sean, have any green-skinned but kind aliens come to pick up students and shocked you?
I haven't seen that happen yet, but I do have probably about 8 to 9 students who are reading volumes of Dragon Ball with their independent reading time. That made me very happy.